We have lots of seats up at the front. So I'd like to start out this morning by asking all of you to help me welcome all of our guests to the 11th Annual Colorado CEO Forum. This event is made possible through the support of our partners. So I would like to ask Citywide Banks, Clifton Gunderson, Innovest, Miner and Brown, SDR Ventures, all of the group chairmen with SDR Ventures, all of you to please stand so we can see where you are and take a moment to thank you. All stand, SDR Ventures, Miner and Brown, Innovest, Clifton and Gunderson, Citywide Banks, and the group chairman with Vistage International. Thank you for your leadership and your generous support. Our intention for today is really three things. First of all, we hope to share some information with you. Some of it you may already know and you need to be reminded, and hopefully some new information. Next, we hope to inspire you to see new possibilities for yourself and your organizations. And thirdly, we intend to challenge you to take this information and these new possibilities to take yourself and your organizations to higher levels of success. That's my partners and my commitment to you today. Here's our game plan for how we're going to do this. We're going to start out this morning with a very brief introduction from each of our partners, just 2 minutes apiece. Once we complete those brief introductions, we're then going to take a few minutes to give each one of you a minute and a half to introduce yourselves around your table to the other people at your table. After those introductions around your table, we'll then take a short 15-minute break to allow you to freshen up your coffee, and then we'll come back for our keynote presentation from Jack Daly, Robust Growth of the Top Line and Bottom Line in Any Market. Jack will speak for about an hour and 20 minutes, and then we'll take another 15-minute intermission. After the intermission, Jack will come back, he'll conclude his program, and then we're going to ask everyone to fill out one of these very important feedback forms. After we fill out these feedback forms, Jack will come back up to the stage and conduct a question and answer session. We'll adjourn a few minutes before lunch. We'll give everybody a free pass to get out of the parking lot quickly, as long as you give us a feedback form. That's your bill. So don't lose those feedback forms. And they got to be filled out. So with that, what I'd like to do now is start our partner introductions. Our first partner is also our newest partner in this event. So if you would, please help me welcome Jeff Smits, Executive Vice President, COO of Citywide Banks.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's been a wonderful life the last 2 years, hasn't it?
Don't look now, but there's something funny going on over there at the bank, George. I've never really seen one, but that's got all the earmarks of being a run.
Can you believe this? 5 out of the biggest bankruptcies in the United States history happened the last 2 years. Lehman Brothers, gone. Washington Mutual, gone. General Motors, Chrysler. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac in receivership. Who would have thought 3-4 years ago that would have taken place? So what happened? Excessive risk, buying derivatives, over-leveraging by consumers, businesses, and governments, bad policy decisions, and poor monitoring. Really just a perfect storm. So what can small business owners do that are here today? Well, we need to stick together. Our family's a small business owner. Citywide Banks has been around for 47 years. We've been dedicated to help small business for 47 years. We're only in the Denver Front Range. We have 13 branches and $1 billion in assets. Community banking is a basic business. It's been around for centuries. We got to redefine banking. Banking is really set up to protect your deposits, monetize the assets that you own, provide funding to buy new assets, and help cycle the flow of money. It's really that simple.
You're thinking of this place all wrong, as if I had the money back in a safe. The money's not here. Well, your money's in Joe's house. That's right next to yours. And in the Kennedy house, and Mrs. Maitland's house, and 100 others.
Does everybody remember that movie? Great movie. So we're only in the Front Range. So your dollar that you put in our bank stays in this market, because we're only in the Denver metro area. And you use that to create jobs, build homes and schools, support charitable organizations. It's all about relationships. You guys compete the same way we do. We give lots of attention, honest working relationships. We're growing our business one customer at a time. We're big enough to fund large amounts, but small enough to care. So let's get down to basics. You're a community business. We're a community bank. We'd love to help and work together. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Dave Londy, Managing Partner of Clifton Gunderson.
Good morning. Growth of our people, growth of our clients. All else follows. That's our mission at Clifton Gunderson. So on behalf of the partners and staff at Clifton Gunderson, I'd like to welcome you today and share our pleasure of being a CEO Forum sponsor. In fact, this is our 9th consecutive year as a sponsor, and we have found tremendous value in participating in this exceptional event. I'm especially excited about this morning's program after having a chance to review Jack's topic today, robust growth of the top line and bottom line in any market. In his presentation overview, Jack identifies 3 key activities for success. And I was struck at how closely those activities parallel Clifton Gunderson's mission. Grow our people, grow our clients, all else follows. For 50 years in the public accounting and consulting arena, Clifton Gunderson has excelled at creating a winning culture where our employees can shine, at providing differentiated services to our clients to help them grow their businesses, and realizing sustained growth even during periods of economic turbulence, totally based on our employees' and our clients' success. As a firm, we're focused on serving clients in the Rocky Mountain region with specialized industry and consulting services. So I invite you to speak today with any of my CG colleagues in the audience, or feel free to call me if you'd like to find out more about how Clifton Gunderson can partner with you and help grow your business. Well, this is going the wrong way. I think I just did Rich's presentation for him. So now you're done, Rich. I'd like to invite Rich Dodd from Innovest.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Have you seen this slide before? You know, actually, the last 10 years has been pretty difficult for investors. Everybody agree with that? The fact is that institutional investors have done a lot better than individuals over the last 10 years. In fact, over the last 10 years, institutions have outpaced individuals by about a 3.5% clip per year. On $1 million investment, individual investors relative to institutional investors left over $400,000 on the table. And there are various reasons for that, but one of the reasons we believe is that high net worth investors or individual investors fail to look forward. They invest in a rearview mirror. And we think a specific example of this is the way investors are coming into the bond market. As we all know, interest rates are very low today, but individual investors especially have been piling money into the bond market. Over the last year, over $500 billion has poured into bond mutual funds. There have actually been net redemptions with equity funds. And over the last year, actually, equities have outperformed fixed income. A recent study indicated that almost 80% of retail investors, individual investors, did not understand the way bonds work. They didn't understand the relationship between price and yield in the bond market. In other words, if interest rates go up, bond prices go down. You lose money. Right now, the 10-year Treasury is yielding around 2 3/4%. If interest rates go up 1% in the next year, you will lose over 3% in that Treasury note investment. If interest rates go up 2 percentage points over the next year, your bond will be worth 10% less than it was just a year prior. Innovest Portfolio Solutions uses institutional best practices in managing money for institutions, retirement plans, foundations, and high net worth individuals. We have a forward-looking research process. We're independent, we're objective, we're fee-only, and we manage $3.5 billion for our clients in the Rocky Mountain region. With that, I would like to introduce my good friend, Ned Miner, who is with Miner & Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Good morning. Miner & Brown is a business law firm for business owners. To learn more about our partners, our employees, and the services we provide on a daily basis, please go to our website at minerbrown.com. When we work with business owners, we're focused on 4 deliverables: experience, common sense, cost efficiency, and results. Hopefully, when it comes to buying or selling businesses, you know that Miner & Brown enjoys a national reputation for getting deals done. To date, we have generated over $2.5 billion in sales proceeds for middle market privately owned businesses just like yourselves. On your book are 2 copies of my, on your table are 2 copies of my book, Deciding to Sell Your Business, The Key to Wealth and Freedom. If you don't receive a copy today and you would like one, again, please go to our website and we'll send you out a complimentary copy. Or better yet, just give me your business card, or Kimberly, who's standing in the very back on the way out, my assistant. Give her your business card and we'll get those copies to you in the mail. Business owners are extraordinary entrepreneurs, and we're struggling with difficult situations in this economy. Let me identify, where's Frank Brony? Where's my good business? Frank Brony is one of the very many successful business owners that we profile in my book. And Frank, in his own words, will describe to you in the book how he got his business started, what made he and his brother Mike decide to sell the business, but most importantly, he wants to share with you how great and extraordinary life is and can be once you've sold your business and take your chips off the table. With that, one final thought. Anytime you have any legal questions or any business questions that you simply want to brainstorm or strategize, please give me a call or any one of my partners that you already know at Miner & Brown, and we will love to meet with you. The conversation will be complimentary, and of course, it'll be confidential. So with that, let me introduce you to Chris Bauk and Andy Limes, principals and founders of SDR Ventures, a prominent investment banking firm here in Denver.
Thanks, Ned. Good morning. I'm Chris Bauk.
And I'm Andy Limes. Chris and I founded SDR Ventures 9 years ago to provide a professional class of services to the investment banking community and private business.
As we serve our marketplace, there are 4 things that always ring true with a business owner. Number 1, we multiply time. There's never enough of that. Number 2, we solve problems. There are plenty of those to go around these days. 3, we add value, or else you wouldn't hire us. And 4, we think like owners because we are business owners.
In fact, we asked a client who graciously agreed to provide us with this testimonial.
Hi, I'm Jack McClurg, CEO of HealthTrans, a pharmacy benefits management company located here in Colorado. I don't know about the experience of the other CEOs in the audience today and whether or not you've ever been through the investment banking process. But I can tell you, if you have, you may not have ever want to do it again. Well, I can tell you I've worked with the SDR Venture guys for 5 or 6 years, and we've closed a number of deals together. And I can tell you with them, that's not the case. I think they call it investment banking reinvented. Now, of course, Chris and Andy put me up to this, but that's okay. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Our services can be summarized by, if there is a transaction in your future, buy or sell, raise debt or equity, give us a call. We'd love to help. Our goal is to maximize the value of your company.
We also consult with business owners, and it almost always revolves around the question, how do I best position my company for success? And finally, we are continually trying to refine our products and services, and we would like to know from you guys today, what are your top 4 challenges in the marketplace?
There's a stack of surveys on your table. If you wouldn't mind, please take time and fill it out. You can leave it on the table, and we'll pick them up at the end of the day, at the end of the program. But again, we'd like to know what is top of mind. We appreciate your time, and with that, I'd like to introduce Mickey Fain, Vistage Chair and founder of the CEO Forum. Mickey, the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Over the last 11 years, I've had the opportunity to work with literally hundreds of CEOs. And the one thing that's become clear to me through this experience is that it's all about leadership. Vistage is an organization that was founded on that belief and has focused on helping leaders become better leaders, make better decisions, and produce better results. Here's how we do this. We pull together groups of 12 to 18 CEOs who meet together once a month and work as a team on strategic business issues, hold each other accountable for their leadership, for their decisions, and for producing results. The result that I'm most proud of, working with the group that I work with, is that 100% of the members of that group have grew their profits year over year through the recession and have continued to grow their profits and are on track to grow their profits again this year, 100%. Now I'm going to ask 2 of the CEOs in the group that I work with to come up and share just 15 seconds apiece their results that they've achieved since joining the group.
Good morning.
Are we on?
Good morning. Is that on?
Yep.
Good morning. I'm Scott Walker with Accuvant. We provide information security solutions to large enterprise. In the 5 years since I've joined Vistage, we've grown our revenues 600% to $250 million. And I credit Vistage with helping me make the decisions that led to those results.
And Greg Greenwood.
This microphone's perfect for me, Scott. And our growth hasn't been quite that much either. Good morning, my name's Greg Greenwood, and I'm founder and CEO of CommCables. We're a low-voltage distributor and manufacturer. I've been in Vistage for 5 years, and it's been a great run. We've increased our revenues triple and our net income by over 200%. Most notably, last year in 2009, with a lot of help from the Vistage members, we had our best net income year in the history of the company. So I'm very grateful for Vistage, Mickey, and all the members. Thank you very much.
Great. These are just 2 examples of the hundreds of stories that are available from Vistage members. I invite you to meet other Vistage members and hear their stories this morning. There are over 20 Vistage groups along the Colorado Front Range, and there are a few openings for the right candidates. If you are committed to your own growth, if you're committed to your success and your company's growth, I invite you to take this yellow feedback form today and check the box to sign up for just an initial interview to determine if you'd be a good fit for a group. And with that, we'll complete our partner introductions. So now I would like to ask you to help me thank Citywide Banks, Clifton Gunderson, Innovest Portfolio Solutions, Miner & Brown, SDR, and myself for completing this the fastest we have ever done it in the last 11 years. Now I'm going to ask each of you at your tables to take a few moments to introduce yourself around to the other people at your table. Please give your name, your company, share what your company does, and I'm asking you to describe the biggest issue or opportunity that you're facing today. I'll give you about 10 or 15 minutes to do that. I'll let you know when that time is up, and then we'll take a short break. If there is a Vistage member or a Vistage chair at the group, if you guys would go first and then facilitate the conversation around your tables. Thanks very much. So it's with great pleasure today on our 11th Annual CEO Forum that I have the opportunity to introduce Jack Daly. He is what I love most about Jack is he's not just a speaker. He's a guy who has been there, done it, and is simply here to share his strategies for success. A couple of examples of that. In 1985, Jack started a mortgage company, and within 18 months, he grew it to 750 employees with over 22 offices nationwide. Within his first 3 years of operations, the company produced profits of over $42 million. Then again, in 1998, as a senior partner with another company, Jack helped grow that company to record growth, where he ranked number 10 in the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies nationwide. Throughout his career, he's led organizations of thousands in offices nationwide. I had the opportunity to have dinner with Jack last night, and probably the thing, though, that I was inspired most about after spending the evening with Jack was that now at the age of 61, in the last 5 years, he's completed 6 Ironman triathlons. That's exactly. See, nobody said wow when I said all that other stuff, right? That's the same feeling I got. Forget about that other stuff. Tell me about the triathlons, man. Does that tell you something, Jack? You got it? So, here today to share his strategies for success, please help me welcome my very enthusiastic, very energetic friend, Jack Daly.
That's too funny. Thank you, Mickey. Thanks for coming out here this morning. And I have a workbook in front of you. And I had the opportunity 4 years ago to be in front of this group, the CEO Forum. And I got a call from Mickey about a year ago. And he says, hey, how would you like to come back to Denver and address the forum group again? And I said, gosh, if we can make that work on the calendar, that'll work for me. So we made it work. And I said, okay, so you haven't seen me in 5 years now and in 4 years now. So let me bring you up to speed on what my hot buttons are these days. So I think of myself as having expertise in 3 basic areas. One area is the culture in your company, creating a winning culture. And I have the opportunity to speak in front of industries and companies and instruct them and teach them on how to build this winning culture. And I can go for like about a day on culture. And so that's one discipline. Another discipline is sales. And sales for me is all about how do I differentiate myself from my competitors? How do I win new customers? How do I grow the ones that I have? And it's all about getting that top line into our companies. And quite frankly, I can speak a full day for 5 continuous days on sales. So we can talk about that. And then the third discipline is that I talk about sales management. And that's about recruiting top producers and then taking your existing sales force and getting them to be better at what they do. And I have about 3 full days worth of material on the sales management side. And so that's bringing you up to date. So what are your thoughts? And I get this pause, and then he says, gosh, I'll tell you what, Jack, that sounded pretty good to me. I'm like, Mickey, are you listening? What sounded good? And he said, all of it. And so if you counted the number of days I said I could speak on this, it's about 2 weeks worth. And we have about 2.5 hours together, and that's what we're going to do. So if this program this morning sucks, talk to him. On page 3 in the workbook is an agenda, and you'll see the first 3 things are all about the 3 things I talked about, and then I slipped the 4th one in, anticipating that if he ended up talking about this Ironman business of mine, that I'd tell you a little bit of the lessons that I've learned in business and life from my Ironman experience. And so if we have time, I'd love to do that as well. I'm going to stress a couple things here. One of them is I'm going to make people uncomfortable. And that's okay with me. I'm going to shake you up from your belief systems a little bit, and I'm going to use the word provocative. And if you don't agree with everything that I'm saying, I'm okay with that, all right? But I'd like you to open yourself up and think about your business in a little bit different way than maybe you've thought about it coming in here today. So I'm going to be pushing you a little bit, particularly in the first 45 minutes or so. All right. Now, the other thing that I'd like you to maybe take some notes, and by the way, the workbook is designed for note-taking. I designed the workbook intentionally to be pretty worthless if you don't take good notes. And the first note, if you haven't made some already, is 2 words that I would write down, and that is systems and processes. Systems and processes, systems and processes, systems and processes. I have been selling since I was 7 years old. At 7, I owned the market that I served and charged twice the price of every kid that I competed with. At 12, I built my first company. At 13, I had 5 employees. They did all the work. I kept 70% of the money. Now, I talked to adults like yourselves when I was a teenager and said, here's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to build companies. I want to build and sell, build and sell, build and sell. And that, in fact, is what has happened. I built 6 companies into national firms and sold 2 to Wall Street. And basically, they've all had a similar motif in terms of being fast-growing on the top and bottom line. Now, when I talked to these adults as a teenager, they said, if you want to do that and do it successfully, go to school, get formally educated, and go become an accountant. So, I have a CPA, and I worked for what was called the Big 8 firm. In fact, it was Arthur Andersen before there was an Enron. Now, I understand all of that accounting stuff, the CFO side of the world. And I bring with me into my clients a very unique perspective, a natural entrepreneur, a natural sales guy with an education that's called systems and process, systems and process. Now, let me tell you what I discover worldwide with my clients. I take the lid off of your company and take the roof off and look inside at everything that's going on, because people will hire me to improve their sales team, and they think that's the only area I'm going to spend time in, but I need to understand the rest of your business in order to make a significant change in the sales side. I take the roof off of the company, I look inside, and I got to tell you, tremendous progress in so many businesses in the last decade in the area of systems and process. All the way through until I get over to this thing called the sales area, and it looks like the wild, wild west with every guy making up his own shit. The largest sales force I ever had responsibility for leading was 2,600 salespeople. There ain't 2,600 best ways to do this job. Figure out the best way and have each guy doing it in a similar fashion. One of the things that I can tell you, and we study the top 10 percenters wherever we go, and one of the things I will tell you about the top performers is that they are canned. They say the same thing the same way each time they encounter a certain situation. The beauty of them is they don't sound canned. It sounds as if it's the very first time they've ever said it. And so when you go through this morning, the thing I'd like you to most understand as a CEO, owner of your business is, what are your systems and processes to ensure that throughout your company, you're selling in the most effective way? And I'm providing you some tools in this handout to get you there. So there's a lengthy agenda on page 3. I'm going to spend a fair amount of time on the big picture in the beginning there, A, and then I'm going to pick and choose in B and C. So if you're a person that your mom and dad made you into being, I'd like them to cover everything on every page, you're going to be really disappointed here, okay? Because there's just not enough time for us to get there, but I wanted to give you some tools to leave with that might be able to carry the day on their own. So let's turn to page 4 and get started. I've had so many people, and I've been blessed with having a great run. I've had so many people after hearing things like Mickey talking about $42 million of profits in the first 3 years. Hey, that's a good move there. What is your name? Sarah. Sarah just turned her chair around so she wasn't like, if your chair hasn't been turned around, I don't want the chiropractic bill, right? So make sure that you're comfortable. I've had so many people that have come to me as business leaders and go, what do you think the secret is? And I go, what are you talking about, the secret? And they said, the secret to these successful companies that you've had. And so I thought about it long enough and said, it comes down to really three things. And I've seen it amplified, and I've seen it done with a lot of my clients that are enjoying some unheralded, just incredible success. The first thing I would tell you is vision. The companies understand what it is they're trying to build. And I'm not talking about a mission statement, and I don't want to diss on a mission statement. I like mission statements, but I'm talking about something that's got a little bit more substance. How about this? I'm talking about something that is magnetic, something that is compelling, something that gets people inside the company, i.e. employees, and outside the company, prospects and customers, excited about doing business with your company. And once you've kind of wrestled down that vision as the CEO of the company, you can't talk enough about it inside and outside your company in an incredibly exciting way, and it needs to be out there in the future, and it needs to have that magnetism. And so one of the things that I found in my history is, gosh, I don't live in the present whenever I'm building my company. No matter what all the negatives and the noise and the challenges and the economy and all of the things that are taking place, all I am is I'm in that, what Happy Gilmore would call the happy place. I'm way out there, and I'm talking to people, and that's the world I live in, and it's real, and I transfer it over to people, and it gets them through the muck because we've got a magnetic, compelling vision. Another thing that I would tell you about this vision, and I learned this from Herb Kelleher at Southwest Airlines in his first 30 years of leading that company, is tell the people in your company how you make money and what their role is in that task. How you make money and what their role is in that task. All right, a second thing, looking in the rearview mirror of my life and these businesses that were fast growing, is key people in key spots. Key people in key spots. Now, I'm going to draw an organization chart here that I think most of us are pretty familiar with. And so here is the CEO, owner, entrepreneur, whatever title we want to give that person. And I'm going to use the word guy. That's male and female. I don't really care how you're plumbed, okay? I grew up in Philly. If you think Rocky, we're there. All right. Now, that's the CEO, owner, entrepreneur. Here's a key spot. Someone who runs the sales organization. I run into companies all of the time. Hey, Jack, I want to grow my revenues. I want to grow my top line. Here's the shortest answer I can give you to growing your top line. Grow your sales force in quantity and quality. And if you grow your sales force in quantity and quality, they in turn will grow your sales. So one of the first things that I do when I go into a company is I want to know who's in charge of the sales force and how much time do they spend selling and how much time do they spend growing their sales force in quantity and quality. Here's a great one-liner. A sales manager's job is not to grow sales. A sales manager's job is to grow salespeople in quantity and quality. And if you grow salespeople in quantity and quality, they in turn will grow your sales. So there's a key spot, someone who runs a sales force. Now, here's a key spot for me in my business, someone who runs the operations side of the house. So these are the guys that bring the business in. These are the guys that deliver on the goods. In a way, these are the promise makers. These are the promise keepers. All right, here's a key spot for me. My CFO, controller, whatever you want to call that person, the person that's in charge of watching my cash. How about that in the last couple of years? Watching my bank relationships. How important are they? Someone who's watching my margins. Hey, left to their own devices, these characters over here, hey, that's not my job. I just bring it in. I don't know whether we make money or not. Well, hell, you better have somebody in charge of that's their job. And so margins is over there. And we could identify some other key spots, but that gets me far enough along to make my point here. Key people and key spots. Of all the spots that I could identify in your organization, I will tell you where my bias is in growing my business on the top line and the bottom line. The most important spot in this chart is right here. Right there. The person who's running your sales organization, and I'll tell you why. Watch. Because without it, the rest of you have nothing to do, including you. So, I want to share with you something that will be really rocking your world. I call it the 3 sins of sales management. Now, when I tell you about these 3 sins of sales management, I want you to know that I have worked with the Vistage organization. I was a Vistage member for 5 years back in the late 80s. I've had a tremendous amount of experience with small to medium-sized companies. Let me tell you what my experience has found. Small to medium-sized companies, by and large, will go in one of these 2 directions. The majority of small to medium-sized companies stay small to medium or go out of business. There's very few small to medium-sized companies that break through. And when I sat down and reflected on why is that, one of the reasons is they very often are committing one or more of these 3 sins. And by definition, we have 400 people in the room today. There are sinners in the house. And I don't need you to raise your hand when I call on you, okay? Here's one sin. I see it committed an awful lot. The CEO, owner, entrepreneur is also the sales manager. All right? Now, I have been this guy. And I've been this guy. I've been the CEO, owner, entrepreneur on more than a half a dozen occasions. I know what that job entails. I know how important it is. And I know this. Done correctly, it is full time. I've been that guy. I've been the head of sales forces, as I mentioned, numbering in the thousands. And I know what that job is, and that job done correctly is at least full time. So think about this. I go into a company, and there's a full-time person that's in that job, running the ops side. There's a full-time person watching the money. There's a full-time person over here, a full-time person over here. But then the most important job in the house, this person's doing both of these jobs. So whenever I run into that, I'm in this guy's face. The hell are you thinking? What's going on here? Boom, 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 boom. Right? And eventually, I wear them out, wear them down, and they surrender, and they go. We can stop talking about it, Jack. Quite frankly, to be truthful, and I love that one, to be truthful, we intend to fill this with a full-time guy when we get bigger and can afford it. That's the guy that gets you bigger. Get a loan. If any of you are committing that sin number 1, I want you to write this question down in your workbook. If you're committing sin number 1, do I have a business or do I have a hobby? Do you have a business or do you have a hobby? You want to grow your business, you want to grow your revenues, you need to grow your sales force in quantity and quality, and I can't imagine that being a part-time job. All right, that's one sin that I see committed. Here's the second one. We take the best sales guy that we have. Want to tell me, come on. Then we make him the sales manager. All right. Now, have I ever found that to be successful? Yes, I have. Not often, but I have found it to be successful. But very often what happens is you lose your best sales guy and get a mediocre sales manager in the trade-off. What made this guy so good at selling is not necessarily what's going to make this guy great at sales management. They're entirely different jobs. This job over here, sales, that's win new customers, grow the ones I got, differentiate myself from the competition. This job over here is all about recruiting, training, coaching, building, developing people. Just because you're good at getting customers and growing your business isn't going to necessarily mean you're going to be any good at this. And this guy over here that was terrific at selling, he's terrific at selling because he lives in a world called immediate gratification. Got a sale, pumped to get another one. Got a sale, pumped to get another one. Then you put him over here. The sales management side of the house is the land of no immediate gratification. Recruiting a top salesperson could take you a year or more. So all of a sudden, this guy's getting well watered with immediate gratification, and now we put him in the land of none. And eventually, what's he going to do? He's going to leak over here like a junkie needing a fix. Let me sell something, right? Now, if this guy's doing his job, he says, no, you don't sell any longer. You sales manage. Now, if you do this to this guy long enough, what does this guy eventually do? He leaves to do what? For who? My competitor. So is this when we bonus you? You lost your best sales guy. He went over to work for your competition, and you got no sales manager at I. Crazy. And by the way, CEOs, owners in the house here, in most cases, this was not your idea. Whose was it? Theirs. They said, hey, I hear you're going to hire a sales manager. I've been here the longest with the best production. I should get that job. Worth writing down. Protect them from themselves. They know not what they ask. They really don't want this job. They want whatever the bangles that go with it. All right? Now, when I run into the third sin, I want to jump off the roof of the building as long as it's high enough that I'll die when I land. Because I don't want to get repaired and then have to come in and deal with it ever again. Watch this one. We take the best sales guy, we make him the sales manager, and say, continue with your book of business. That is complete insanity. I start stuttering on this. Like, how do you judge whether this guy's going to be successful? Number 3, do you judge his success because he's a great sales manager? Or do you judge his success because he's great at bringing in business? I asked the CEO that makes this decision on number 3, how does this guy spend his time? Oh, about 50-50. Bullshit. 50-50. How much did this guy make last year, and how much came from sales management, how much came from sales? Oh, the majority of his money came from sales. Then what did he do? Then he sold and threw you a few bones on the sales management side. If you're committing any one of these 3 sins, and you looked at the title of this program on how to, in any economy, increase your profits and your revenues, you've got to just quit sinning. That's a big, big item. All right? All right, key people in key spots. The third area in entrepreneurial insight is culture. Culture. Every company that's represented in here today has a culture. You go into a company for the very first time. It's a competitor, you're a customer, you're a Vistage colleague, whatever auspices you go in. How long does it take you to get a sense for the company's culture? How long? Not long. Most of my audiences, seconds, minutes, get it right away. So here's what I would tell you on that page to maybe write down under that line number 3 is you can smell a company's culture. So here's a couple questions to write down there. How does our company's culture smell right now? Is it smelling good? Or does it stink? Here's another great question. Do you have a culture by design? Or do you have a culture by default? Is someone sitting in your company that owns the culture, designed the culture, and fosters the culture? Or does your culture just kind of grow like mold? The majority of companies' cultures are just growing like mold. So on the next page in your workbook, I defined culture at the top. Actually, I didn't, but I will for you, and you could write it in. This is where I do some of my finest work. A blank sheet of paper, and I'm visioning my company. And when I am in my vision state, and I am trying to figure out what I'm going to build, I'm standing in my office, and I'm standing at this flip chart, and I'm going, Jack, if you could build a culture if you could create an environment in your company where the people who work in it don't get up each morning and go like this, oh, God, I got to go into work today. No, no, no. How about if we did this? If we could create a culture where the people who work in our company got up in the morning and said, hot damn, I get to go to work there. Because if we could do that, we'd have a competitive, sustainable advantage. Let me put it to you another way. If you could create a culture in your company where people didn't just come in as employees and give you their mind and their body, but they gave you their hearts, you'd have a competitive, sustainable advantage. So a great question for the leader, the CEO of the company, is this: what am I doing to win over the hearts of our people? What are we doing to win over the hearts of our people? And then I want you to write one other word up there on those lines under culture define, and this is a key word. We're seeing it manifested from company to company that is outperforming everybody in their sectors. Fun. Make your business fun. So on this page number 5, I've got some examples that I'd like to give you. The first one that I'll give you is Zappos. How many people in the room have heard of Zappos? Zappos, all right, the women's hands are up. All right, so Zappos is just moved out of its 10th year. So they're in their 11th year. They sell shoes online. Now, they started selling shoes. In the last 2 years, they've added some additional apparel items. But basically, they are selling shoes online. If you're ever in Vegas, and by the way, I'm a major blackjack player, and I've been asked to leave 2 casinos for counting cards and all of that, but I will tell you, nothing on the Strip competes with a tour of Zappos. And it's 30 minutes off of the Strip in Henderson. They give 4 tours a day. They're an hour. You call them or email them. Schedule your tour. It's free. Bring a camera. No one that you talk to will believe your stories without photos. It is like a frat house on steroids. There are 800 plus people at their headquarters, and it's like a sect. It's not right to call the people that work there employees or associates. It's a sect. They would prefer to be there than anywhere else, including at home with family or friends. It is a community. And Tony Hsieh, he created that by design. And he just issued his book in the last 3 months called Delivering Happiness. And I'd recommend you take a look at that. And I'd recommend that you go on the tour, and it is incredible. It's so spirited. It's so much fun. They have posters hanging up all over the place, and here's what it says: we're a customer service company who happens to sell. And they put all employees, even if you're working in the accounting area and you're going to be the accounts payable person, you go through the sales and service training. And let's say the sales and service training is a 4-week program. At the end of the 4 weeks, you're offered a check to leave the company and resign, and we'll pay you $2,000. Last year, 3 people took the check. Everybody else pushed it back and said, there ain't a check big enough that you could write that would cause me to not take this job here. I want you to think about how your company employees are relative to those. You go through the tour, you're going to get a book that's this thick, and they publish it anew every year, and it's emails and letters from all their employees to Tony saying, this is the greatest thing I've ever been involved in. I want to live here for the rest of my life. That is a competitive, sustainable advantage. And what does it mean in terms of revenue and bottom line and top line? Well, I'm a build and sell entrepreneur. Let me tell you what Zappos pulled off. Last year, they sold to Amazon. 10-year-old company, built from scratch, sold for $1.2 billion. We could learn a lot from Zappos. Next example, Netflix. Netflix. What are we talking there? What are we talking, Netflix? Movies, all right. So, not the first in the field. Somebody else was in that space, had a big market share in that space. Who was that? Blockbuster. How are they doing? Okay, so bankruptcy declared by Blockbuster just a week ago, and Netflix is trading at an all-time stock high. Company's growing leaps and bounds. Netflix, no stores. Blockbuster, thousands of stores, shuttering them every day. You talk to the owner and founder of the company, and it's all about the culture. So I want to share with you something that was just incredible. Last year, they gave all of us an opportunity to look at a document that previously was internal only. And so here's what you need to do. Go to your search engine and type the following in. Netflix, culture, policy, and procedure. Netflix, culture, policy, and procedure. You will have access now to a slide presentation of PowerPoints of about 120 slides. You can click through them very, very quickly. It'll take you less than 15 minutes. And I'm going to tell you, it will be provocative. It will rock your world. It is incredible stuff. I'll give you a couple of the slides. So they had a big company meeting. This kid, employee, raises his hand. Owner's there. Raises his hand and says, I love this company. I think that I speak for an awful lot of us, but we really enjoy working here. And but I got to tell you, the vacation policy here is really at odds with the way the rest of the culture is. And the CEO of the company says, well, I don't understand. What do you mean? And he goes on to say, well, I come in the morning early. No one logs in. No one keeps track. And I don't get paid for coming in early. And I'm not complaining and I'm not asking to, because I'll tell you what, I just love what we're all about, and I love coming in and doing my job. And by the way, I stay late, and I'm not only talking about me. There are lots of people here that do this. I work on weekends occasionally. None of it I'm getting paid for, and I'm not complaining. None of us are. But I just want you to take that and compare it to the way the vacation is run here. You got to work so many weeks and months to earn a week, and then every 2 weeks we have to file a report that says how many days we used and when are we going to use the rest. And if you don't use them up by the end of the year, you lose them. And there's all of this draconian stuff that goes on with vacation policy, and no one's tracking whether I worked early, late, and worked on the weekends. It's out of balance. CEO of the company says, never ever gave it any thought. You're absolutely right. So, the PowerPoint, here's what it would say. Netflix vacation policy. When you need vacation, take it. Here's the PowerPoint slide on the T&E reimbursement. T&E policy. If it's an appropriate company expense, please bill it to us. I'm speaking to a group of CEOs and owners of businesses in Chicago a few months ago. A couple guys sitting right there, talking to each other, laughing. I said, what are you laughing at? They said, we just agreed if we had just those two PowerPoints in effect at our company, we'd be out of business in 90 days. I said, so you think it's a problem with the policy and procedure, or do you think that it goes deeper inside your organization? If you don't trust your employees, you're in deep caca, gang. If you don't trust your employees, then get new ones. But what we're going to suggest is we could create a very, very different culture than the way our businesses have heretofore been run and managed in the past. Netflix is proving it every day. So also is Zappos. My third example on that list, well, I'm on an airplane there almost every day. Came in on one yesterday, leave on one today. On one tomorrow, and I'm the grand poobah of flying in all the frequent flyer clubs almost, right? Like American Airlines is over 6 million miles. There's one airline that I don't get to fly very often because the rest of the airlines don't play fair with them. Like when I've got a multiple day trip and I've got United and going over to Continental and then over to US Air, they're all grouped together on my ticket, except they won't play fair with this one airline. You know which one? Southwest, yeah. So now, big news in the airline industry is we lost less billions this quarter than we did the previous year quarter, right? And then we got the mergers and the bankruptcies and all the rest of that stuff that's going on. The airline industry in the United States is in a shambles, and there's Southwest. 37 years of business, 35,000 employees, and 37 years of consecutive profits in an industry that's decimated. When I have spoken, and I've spoken on 3 occasions with Herb Kelleher, he tells me that the key to Southwest is a magnetic, compelling vision and then creating a culture that's fun. And don't you agree? Don't the employees at Southwest Airlines look like they enjoy working there compared to the rest of them? I mean, they exude that, and it ends up enveloping us. And it's just they go the extra mile, and they do things, and they're taking initiative on their own. And that, if you think all of that's by accident, it is by design. And Herb said, make it fun. If you haven't gone and seen the YouTube, if you haven't seen the YouTube video of the flight attendant giving the safety announcement, put that on your to-do list from this morning. It's a crack up. They got the flight attendant about to do the safety announcement, and the video is filming all the passengers. And the flight attendant says, I'm about to do the safety announcement, but I need your help. Everybody right now, put your hands together. And everybody on the plane starts doing this. The guy does it to rap. And I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. I'm on a Southwest Airlines flight, and this gal gets up as the flight attendant says, hey, y'all. About to give the safety announcement. For those of you that haven't been in an automobile since 1954, look up here and I'll show you how to work a seatbelt. Now, I start laughing my ass off. I'm looking at the whole row. They're all laughing. The plane is laughing. And by the way, we're listening for what she's going to say next, which none of us are doing on any of the other airlines. Okay? So I tell Herb Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest, the CEO leader for the first 30 years, I tell him the story. He says, Jack, everybody didn't think it was funny. I said, what, are you kidding me? He said, no, I got a letter from a lady that was on that flight saying safety ought to be of paramount importance. Your people need to be reprimanded, and here are their names. And your policy and procedure needs to change. And if you don't, I will be flying another airline. I said, you've got to be kidding me, Herb. I said, what did you do? He said, I wrote her back, Jack. I said, we will miss you. How many of us, for the protection of our culture, would say goodbye to a customer? Because Southwest will do that. They don't need all of them. They just need the ones that appreciate how they're run and how they're doing it. Big billboards on the side of the freeway, and it's a Southwest Airlines billboard, and here's what it says. It's only 3 lines. The customer is not number one. Here's the second line. Our employees are. Third line. Because if we get it right with our employees, they will get it right with you, our customers. That last line's worth writing down, guys. If you get it right with your employees, they will get it right with your customers. My fourth example, oh, by the way, Southwest Airlines, so much of what they do on the culture side, documented in a well-written book called Nuts, N-U-T-S. Okay? All right, my fourth example of culture-driven. Now, think about these companies. They are beating the pants off of everybody that they're competing with in their industry, regardless of the economy. It's driven by the culture. My fourth example, I think if I went up to anybody at an event like this and said, so, where do you work? I work at the Virgin Company. I would just stop in my track and go, that's got to be cool. It's got to be cool to work at Virgin. And Virgin Companies now is a conglomeration of over 300 companies. I just think that it would be cool to work at Virgin. Just think of the leader, Sir Richard Branson. Playboy did an interview last year with Sir Richard Branson. And I'm one of those guys that doesn't just look at the pictures. I actually read the articles. Here was one question that Playboy magazine asked Richard Branson. Is there an overall lesson on how to keep a company vital? Keeping a company vital for me is the culture. Branson, it all comes down to people. Nothing else comes close. Motivating people and bringing in the best. You assume every switchboard operator will excel, and they will. Often people make mistakes, but allow for that too. Praise people like plants. They must be nurtured. And make it fun. Every one of these examples I'm giving you is fun, is all the way through it. Value them. Give them the opportunity to contribute in ways that excites them. The kinds of people we employ are not afraid to take risk. If someone mucks up, they don't get a bollocking from me. They know they've mucked up and they'll redouble their efforts out next time. Keep it vibrant. Everything comes back to people, nothing else. You get loyalty, enthusiasm, and great service for your customers. I want you to take this challenge in of yourself as the owner, CEO of your business right now. I want you right now to think about, how does Richard Branson spend his day? And compare it to how you do. Now, your brain will try to take a cop-out on that. And your brain will say, hey, if I had the kind of dough that he has, I could be on Necker Island in the hammock too. Okay? Guess what? Let's sit down and discuss it at a break. Richard Branson has never changed from the day he had no money. The reason that he's enjoying the fruits of all this success is because he is the way he is and can create a company's culture to be like it is. That's where he spends his time, on the culture side of the house. Now, by this time, there are people in the room that their mom and dad made them into being more analytical, and they are not won over at all by me because I keep telling stories. And inside their head, they're going, what a bunch of bullshit. So, I want to address you and give you some proof. So, under rewards on page 5, I'm now going to give you 4 pieces of proof that the stories that I'm using are for real. John Kotter is viewed in the world as being kind of the intellectual guru of culture in business. He took 10 years of his life off and he studied companies and he compared them in the culture arena. He looked at companies that didn't spend time in the culture, and then he looked at companies that did spend time on the culture. And he came out with 4 very, very, very compelling results. The first one that he found was revenues. Revenues increased 682% versus 166. All right, let's think about that. In the companies that spent time creating this fun, winning culture, their revenues were up 682%. In the companies that didn't spend time, they were up 166. I'm looking at that as 3+ times the revenue. If I could just create this thing that I've been talking about, being a culture. Well, that's pretty compelling stuff. People came here this morning to learn about how do I increase revenues in any economy. There's one, but it got better. The study just got better and better. The second was stock prices. Now, if you're not traded, it doesn't matter because stock prices is another word for the value of your company. Stock prices increased 901% versus 74. 901 versus 74. Now, I'm a build and sell entrepreneur. What that just said to me is that if I create this fun culture where the people who work there like coming in and doing their thing, when I sell this puppy, it's going to get me over 10 times what it would have done had I not created that environment. I'm in. Now, if you're not interested in selling your company and you want to keep it, then the third finding will be interesting to you. That was net income, profits. So not just the top line, now we're going to talk about the bottom line. This one just rocks my world. Net income increased 756% versus 1. Hardly making any money, just about staying alive, to rocking and rolling with 756%. That's about as far in the study I had to go. Let the fun begin. I'm with Tony, baby. Let's go. The fourth area that Kotter found was job growth. Job growth increased 282% versus 36%. 282 versus 36. I can't imagine somebody that I was sitting with in their 20s saying, I'm so excited I'm going to go to work in the airline industry. Not with cutbacks and bankruptcies and all the things that are happening. Then what the hell is Southwest Airlines doing? Every position they have open has 87 applicants. They ain't applying at Southwest Airlines because it's a hot sector. They're applying there because of a magnetic, compelling vision and a fun culture. So in the middle of that page, some actions that we could take. I've just bullet pointed a few because I'm going to drive a little bit of that with some specificity. Here's the big picture on the sub-actions on B. Recognition systems. What are your systems to ensure regular ongoing recognition? Not leaving it to chance. What are your systems to ensure regular ongoing recognition? Our people are dying for recognition. Feed them. Feed them regularly, feed them ongoing, and not when you happen to be in a good mood. Regularly, consistently, and ongoing. And since I major in the sales side of the world, I don't think those salespeople could ever be fed enough recognition. Load it up, back up the truck, beep, 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 and back it in on them. Second, communication systems. The number one complaint of employees in America is we don't know enough about what's going on in the company. And when we hear it from you, we don't know whether it's real or whether it's spin. What are your systems to ensure regular ongoing communication? Third, empowerment. Empowerment definition by Jack Daly. Creating an environment in my company where the people who work in it feel comfortable making decisions as if they were the owner. Creating an environment in my company where the people who work in it feel comfortable making decisions as if they own the joint. Because when I first start a company and I've got 4 of us, I'm involved in most anything and everything. But all of a sudden the company's now 30 employees. Now the company's 50 employees. Now the company's 100 employees. Now I'm hardly ever seeing a customer. And when I'm driving home after a long day at the office, I'm going, gosh, I hope the people that are dealing with the customer are treating them like I would as the owner. Empowerment. And the fourth is training. Particularly if you have employees that are in their 20s and 30s. Those people are not going to go to your company and guaranteed will not be staying at your company unless you are doing personal and professional development of them. And you have a competitive edge if you sink training into your culture of your business. And we're finding that to be true with these companies that I've been using as examples. So on page number 6, I've got some recognition systems ideas for you. Birthdays and company anniversaries. CEOs, owners in the room, you just need to send a birthday card to everybody in the company to their home each year on their birthday. Just make it a process and a system. And how about when they have an anniversary with the company? 5 years with the company, off goes a card. I had 2,600 salespeople. Every single one of them got a birthday card from me, and every single one of them got an anniversary card. Now, I had a system for that. We have an HR department, and they know when everybody started, so they can get anniversaries, and they know the birthdays because they have it in the file. I said to HR on the 15th of every month, prior to the next month, give me a stack of all the birthday cards for next month, and who's in the stack. Give me a list of the people. And the anniversaries, who's in the pay, give me a list of those, and tell me how many years they've been with the company. Gosh, Mickey, here it is. 7 years with the company. I think back over the last 7 years at the tremendous success that we've had as a company. And I'll tell you what, a big component is the contributions that you've made over those 7 years. I wanted to wish you a happy anniversary and looking forward to many, many more. Thanks for being a great team player. Jack. And off they go. I sign them in an hour All of them. Give them back to HR and say, bleed them out over the next 30 days. System and a process. It's amazing how many people I have come up inside my companies that come to me and say, it's amazing that you even know when my birthday is, that you would take the time to recognize it, etc. A system and a process can enable you to do that. I was speaking to a Vistage group in San Francisco, and there was a gentleman who had a fairly sizable bank, but it was a regional local bank and in the San Francisco area, and he raised his hand. He's an older gentleman, and that kills me. I'm 61. How much older do they get, Jack? All right. So he's this older gentleman, and he says, guys, I'm telling you, this has been an incredible part of the success of our bank. I have made it a part of my life ever since I started the bank. On people's birthday, I pick up the phone and call them and wish them happy birthday and have a conversation with them. I said, wait. Every employee of the bank? Every employee of the bank. CEO of the bank calls them on their birthday. Recognition systems. Handwritten notes. The power of the people in this room to just send a note to somebody saying, thanks, you've done a hell of a job. I appreciate you. We appreciate you. Is powerful. People keep these for the rest of time. I was talking in Chicago, and I was speaking to a Vistage all-city event, and they had all the members from Chicago there. And this guy, after I was telling the story about these handwritten notes, he came up to me afterwards, and at the end of my presentation, he said, Jack, that you couldn't have been more right. He said, it was amazing. I work and run now a company that my dad started. And one of the employees that had worked there for something like 40-some years had died. And I went to the funeral, and then they had kind of the meal type thing after the funeral back at the person's home. And I needed to use the restroom, and I went down to use the restroom in their home. And along the wall towards the restroom, there were 3 framed pieces of paper that were notes that my dad sent to that employee over a period of years saying, we really appreciate the efforts that you put into our company. We need to be better at this, gang. What are your systems to ensure people are going to hear from you? Here was mine. I had 2,600 salespeople. I said, you know what? Every month, at least 100 people are going to get a handwritten note saying, thanks, you're doing a hell of a job. And my personal assistant, Gloria, on the 10th and the 20th of the month, had to tell me where I stood with my personal notes. Jack, it's the 20th of the month. You got 27 of those notes out. If you're going to get 100, you better get snapping. Now, I had a report that I listed 1 to 2,600 where they stood in my Salesforce twice a month. 15th in the end of the month, we ranked them all the way. 50 to a page. I run the top 50 through a copier 50 times. I circle each guy's name, and I write right on there. Hey, Mickey, here you are, top 50 of 2,600 salespeople, but it's not the first time this has happened. 7 of the last 9 months you've been on this page. It tells me a lot of things. It tells me your customers really appreciate you. I want to let you know that your company does too. And the next time I'm in your area, let's go out and share a glass of wine or two with each other. Thanks, Jack. I go out into my areas and my branches and locations, and these things are hanging up all over everybody's work area. I went to my Buffalo, New York office. Every handwritten note I sent to anybody in that office was in a glass frame in the hallway called the Hall of Fame. Got a handwritten note from Jack the Man. I walk into my Colorado Springs office, and in my Colorado Springs office, this guy walks up to me. He's a young kid. He walks up, he shakes my hand. He says, Mr. Daly, I want to introduce myself. I'm new here. My name is Bill Smith. And I went to release my hand. He goes, no, stay with it. Look at me. He said, I want to be clear on one thing. I'm new here. My name is Bill Smith. Before the end of this year, you know those notes that you write to top producers? Well, you're going to get busy and write one to Bill Smith. I took that branch out for cocktails and dinner that night. By the time I got back to my room, it was late. I had emails. I had voicemails. I had all kinds of business to conduct. The very first thing that I did, though, is I wrote 10 handwritten notes to people in the system because I saw how powerful that was. Now, I'll tell you what my competitors were doing when I was doing my handwritten notes that night. They had these little tools out, and they were doing all this stuff. So I'm going to tell you, if I were to speak about culture all day, I would, at the end, tell you this most important sentence, which I'll give you right now. The reason that cultures don't work in so many businesses at the level that they should is this sentence. People and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. People and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. The problem with so many of the things that fall under this umbrella called culture is that they are not urgent. But think about those stats on the prior page from the Kotter study, and you can see how important they are. You see, if I were to do my emails and voicemails when I got back to the hotel that night, by the time I got through them all, I'd be dead tired. I got an early flight, and I would say, the handwritten notes, I'll do those another time. When does that come? Never. But you see, if I did the handwritten notes first, then I'd have to still deal with this crap. Where is culture on the priority in your company? And I'm going to lay this on heavy to the CEO owners. It ain't something that you are readily delegating. Because I go and talk about culture, and all of a sudden I see a CEO go, we really need to work on this. I'll meet with the head of HR. They don't know what the hell to do what I'm talking about. They're about compliance, policy, procedure. It's like the worst place to put it. And if there's an HR person up here, don't come at the break and expect me to apologize. All right. The fourth one on the list is PSR, Planned Spontaneous Recognition. Planned Spontaneous Recognition, which really is just making surprises for people. Just catching them by the unawares. And planning it out. You could literally sit down and plan out the next 12 months of spontaneous recognition stuff that's going to happen. And I know that you could because I have. I took over a savings bank during the early 90s during the S&L crisis. It was the fifth largest in the country with $23 billion on its balance sheet. I started to go out to the branches, and I found all of these heroic acts going on with nobody getting recognized for them. I came back to my office, and I doodled something on a pad, and I called it this: Caught in the Act of Greatness. And anybody could give this to anybody for any reason that they thought was great. No rules. Now, I wasn't brought up through that banking system. I was this outside guy that was the change agent that was going to be responsible to turn the bank around during the crisis. I inherited 12 direct reports with an average tenure in the bank of 15 years. I doodled this and then I brought it into my direct report meeting and said, I'm going to put this into a policy because I don't think enough people are getting recognized. And they looked at it and went, oh, this is the terrible idea. I said, what do you mean it's a terrible idea? They said, well, there's no rules. And people will be giving it to everybody and their friends and everything with no reason whatsoever. And I go, oh, my God, that would be terrible. People would be overly recognized. Oh, what the hell? I ordered 5,000 of them. In the first 90 days, we went through 30,000. They're hanging up all over everybody's area. I had people that were tellers that hang them up next to their teller windows, and customers are coming in, and they say, what's that? And they tell them, and they go, can I put you in for one? The customers wanted to participate. The hell, let's do it. Out of the box awards. If you want people to think creatively, particularly in a tightened economy, you need to recognize and reward that behavior. Out of the box is risky. Tightened economy, stay safe. I don't want to lose my job, so I'm not going to go out of the policy and procedure. The customers are tired of your policies and procedures. We're tired of hearing about how you can't make a decision on the front line because your boss isn't in. We're tired of telling us that the book says this and the book says that. Legendary story. I love this legendary story. Guy walks into a bank. He parks his car in the parking lot where, he gets the ticket because he got to park, right? He gets his ticket. He goes into the bank. He says to the teller, I need this document notarized. The teller says, our notary isn't in today. He said, well, how about the manager? Can that manager of the bank notarize? No, the bank manager in this bank branch doesn't have a notary. Okay, well, I need this notarized today, so I guess I'm going to have to go somewhere else. Could you take care of my parking? The employee says, I'm sorry, sir, but you have to do a transaction in order for us to punch my parking. He said, are you kidding me? I'm trying to do a transaction. You're obviously not open for business. I'm willing to do the notarized. Well, but you don't have notary as an in. Well, then do my parking. Sorry, the policy and procedure, sir, says that I can't do parking without a transaction. So he says, you know what? Let's do the transaction. Close my accounts. Now, let me share with you the complete story, because the individual was John Akers, who was the chairman and CEO of IBM before Lou Gerstner. Buster, how's that for your policy and procedure? We need the people to be thinking on their own. We need them to go out of the box. Recognize and reward them for doing that. Associate of the month, quarter, and year, that's an easy one. Ring the bell. I have a big bell that hangs outside my office. Anybody can ring it for any reason whenever they think they deserve recognition. As soon as the bell goes off, it gets silent around there. Everybody wants to know. They get up on the chair, they say their piece, and then everybody does the hoorah. And we're injecting energy in the house. So I'm walking through the tour at Zappos, and there on the side of the wall is a big bell with a whiteboard. I say to Tony, so what's the bell? He says, well, anybody on the floor, whenever they do something that they think is worthy of recognition, they come up and ring the bell. And since we have so many people, a couple hundred people out here, there's a megaphone there, and they just blast out and tell everybody. And I'm like, get out of here, really? Because it's like, wow, my bell, right? And he goes, yeah. He says, you do anything worthy of recognition lately? I said, I'm sure I have. He said, go over there and recognize yourself. Ring the bell. I ring the bell, I shouted out, the whole place started cheering. They're all on the phone with customers. By the way, let's think about this. If you were on the phone talking about ordering shoes at Zappos, and then you heard everybody cheering and everything, would that offend you? Would that be a cool thing to have happen? Yeah, well, that's the way everybody feels about it. Ring the bell. And I don't go anywhere without my camera. This camera has done so many remarkable things. We were talking about it before I get started here today, and you said, hey, you're going to talk about the camera. I'm not. But on the sales side of the world, I have one card that I made with a camera that has made me over $1.3 million in 5 years. Card cost me $1. But I carry this camera with me everywhere I go and take pictures of people inside the company for every reason and any reason. And I just send them personalized cards. I just go out into my laptop and nail them. And it's so easy. There's services out there. I used to use Shutterfly.com, but now I use SendOutCards.com because they're they're 1/3 the price, and it's built for business, and you can put your database in, so it really works for sales. So Shutterfly.com is a service. SendOutCards.com is the service that I use. And people, it's amazing. I always send the cards to their home, but they always drift back into the company. And I'm looking for opportunities to do it. And then item number 10 on the recognition, and this really relates to particularly the sales side of the house, contest. Daily contest, weekly contest, monthly contest, quarterly contest, annual contest. Here's my motto, contest the shit out of them. The guys love contests. I'll come in and on the way into work, I'll stop at Starbucks and I'll say, load up a plastic piece of plastic, give me $50 credit on the card, would you? They give me the credit card, the little plastic gift card. I walk in the office and say, the first person that gets a sale today, the person who gets the most sales today, whatever it is. I stop at restaurants and get gift certificates, department stores and get certificates. I'll load stuff up with Netflix. I'll give credit over at Zappos, an airline ticket. And I'm got all the way to, how about this, 130 salespeople sitting in the same building doing phone work, selling over the phone, and not a one of them was 30 years old, all in their 20s. And I got two partners back in this business, Mark and Brett. And I said, say, Mark, Brett, this was back, we were doing mortgage lending in in the mid-'90s, back in the days when you had to prove as a customer you made money and would pay us back, which I heard is back in vogue now. All right. Now, so here's the deal. So all these 20-year-olds are there, and I said, man, we have a parking problem in the building. We have more people than there are parking spaces. So here's my idea, Mark and Brett. And I want to take the first parking space next to the front door. We'll put a big sign on it. We'll call it the Platinum Star. To put the guy's name in it. That's the top sales guy each month. And they get to park there. What do you think? And they go, I think that's a great idea. And I said, beautiful. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put a Mercedes 450 SL in there for them. What? Yeah. Don't you think that would be exciting? Exciting? Hell, I think it'd be expensive. I said, Mark, it ain't going to be that expensive. You've got a Mercedes 450 SL. We'll use yours. He said, what am I supposed to use? I said, it's 2 years old, man. Get yourself a new one. I said, look, if you just riddle me out for about 5 minutes here, if you don't agree with doing this, we won't do it. I said, how much is the lease on that car of yours? He said, about $950 a month. I said, all right. Then, you know what? We'll round it off at $1,000. We'll buy them a shirt. They get to keep the shirt. It'll say Platinum's Mercedes Club. And they get to keep the shirt, but they lose the car each month if they don't be number one. And so we got 130 guys out on the sales floor. When I announced the program that we're going to give a car away, how many of the 130 do you think are in the hunt? How many do you think are thinking that? All of them. All right. So now we know that that's not true, right? All right. Every day, we're going to report on the big wall where they stand in the contest. So the production numbers are up on the wall. All right. Now, how many guys of the 130 are still in the hunt for the car with 10 days left in to go? How many of the 130 are still in the hunt? What do you think? It's about 10 to 15 guys are still in the hunt. It's 5 days left in the month. How many are left? It's about 3 to 5 left. What time do you think those 3 to 5 guys are starting in the morning? 5 o'clock? You wouldn't be even in the hunt. 5 o'clock, be sleeping in with that group. Let me tell you how bad or good it got depending upon your perspective. We opened up at 7 a.m. We closed at 10 p.m. I had guys in the last 5 days of the month come to me and say, at 10 o'clock, could you lock me in so I could do all my paperwork all during the night and I'll be ready to hit the phones, ready to go. I could never, you could never, ever make people do this, but you could create a culture where they self-elect it. 2 days left in the month. 2 guys are battling it. What does that circus look like? All right, so I said to Brett and Mark, I said, listen, how many additional loans do you think we would get in a month from this contest? So what we agreed on was 40. We made $1,500 profit on a loan. That would be 60 grand. It cost me 1,000. How many people would spend 1,000 for 60 grand on the profit? Our friends from Clifton Gunderson will ride me out of here on a rail for this. My CPA would be taken away for the statement, but I'm going to give it to you as an entrepreneur. There are no such things as expenses in business. Only investments. And everything that you do in your business should be measured as a return on investment. The number of times in my life that people got in the way of doing things from a recognition and reward system because it was going to be too expensive. I think spending $1,000 on giving that car away was a great return on investment. But it would have been blown up because of a mentality that said expensive. Measure, contest. I can create contests. You can create contests that will self-fund all day long. On page number 7, we have some communication initiatives. I'm not going to cover every one of these because of the interest of time. But sharing the vision I already talked about. Offsite Planning Advanced, just to get the name nomenclature right. I hate the word retreat when you go off-site with the top people in your firm and talk about where you're going to take the business. I often visualize, do they have a white flag hanging up while they're having the meeting? So don't retreat, advance, okay? The daily huddle. Anybody doing the daily huddle in the room? There we go. Well, how long have you been doing it? 5 years. And it occurs every day. How long does it take? 10 minutes. And if you've been doing it for 5 years, it has to be of value, I guess. Absolutely. There's a book written by a friend of mine that I would highly recommend called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And the author is Vern Harnish. And he introduced the daily huddle concept. No matter where my clients are that are doing it, they tell me it's one of the best things they've ever done. It takes no longer than 15 minutes every day. It's held at a certain time, at 9:07. We're going to do it till 9:15. And it gets done. People all get together in the company. What's hot, what's not, what do we need to work on? Bing, bang, bing, get it done and go. And there's just no way to do spin with your communication. It has to be real and it has to be pertinent and it's got to be live. I have my clients that are doing it regularly and ongoing, 5 years, and say, one of the best things we ever implement in the company will never stop. I then introduce it to my other clients, and I get this as a reaction. There's no way that there's no way that we could take everybody away from what they're doing for 15 minutes every day. The difference between those two individuals is urgent versus important. People and companies tend to underperform their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important. Monthly announcements, a longer version than the huddle. Quarterly updates, even bigger. Quarterly themes. If you're not getting Vern's newsletter, it comes out every week, and it's free. You just want to go to his website called Gazelles.com. Gazelles.com. It's a one-pager, no bigger than this page that I'm holding here. And he's going to give you ideas that are happening all over the world with clients that are just knocking the ball out of the park. And one of them is the themes that they've used in their company to get people energized. So you don't even have to be creative anymore. Have other companies road test these suckers and take the best of that have already been proven. Incidentally, speaking of newsletters, I do a monthly newsletter on culture, sales management, and sales. If you're not currently getting it, just find a way to throw a business card up on the stage or hand it to me here before you leave, and we'll put you in there. Our current issue is being released as we speak here today. Email blast, voicemail blast, just regularly communicating by way of those mechanisms. Newsletters, now we can do them on the internet. They don't even cost you anything. It used to be you had to take them to the printer and they were dated. By the way, I wouldn't assign HR to do it. We want it to be stuff that's going to be fun and culturally enthusiastic. My experience with HR is I don't find that over in that sector. Orientation. Some of the Vistage members have heard me speak to the group, and they got the long version of this. I'm going to give you the short version of it. I can't understand why people are throwing parties for people when they leave the company. I go back to my accounting training. I can't figure out where the return on investment is. They're leaving. The hell am I partying about? But I love the concept if you put it on the right end, and that is, how about this as an orientation idea? Throw parties for new hires. Throw parties for new hires. You see, if Mickey was my new hire, this is what he would experience in our company. He'd walk into the lobby and there'd be a whiteboard this big, hanging up, "Welcome, Mickey Finn, to the XYZ company. We are thrilled that you have joined us." He'd come over in the lobby and introduce him to the person that you call a receptionist and I call a director of first impressions. Because that's where the culture starts to emanate. He says, Mickey. Oh, Mickey. Excited to have you on board. Heard so many neat things about you. Gosh, the guys probably already talked to you about this exciting magnetic vision that they have. So, we're all in on that. But I got to tell you something. You've never worked anywhere as much fun as this place. Wait till you see what it's like. In fact, let me take you back to your desk. Takes him back to his desk. There's streamers hanging from the ceiling, all encircling his desk. There's helium-filled balloons tied to the back of the chair. There's a card signed by the owner saying, welcome to our company. There's a card signed by the sales guys, if he was a sales guy, welcome to our team. There's a company logo shirt laying on his desk for him. A company logo ball cap laying on his desk for him. There's a box of business cards with his name embossed on the cards, as opposed to the sales manager saying, here's 30 of mine, scratch my name out and write yours. We have lunch brought in for the whole sales team, and each guy takes 5 minutes and says what their story is, and then Mickey takes 15 and tells them what his story is. And then we assign a peer, a salesperson, to join Mickey for the next 60 days as his go-to guy so he doesn't have to keep going into the sales manager and saying, I'm block dead stupid. How does that software work again? I have a vision of Mickey putting his cards in his pockets at the end of the workday, his first day, dropping maybe his new logo shirt, riding home for the big question from his significant other. So how was your day today, honey? Oh, greatest personal business decision I've ever made in my life. I wish I had a video of it. They threw me a party. I walked in and my name was in lights. At my desk, they had these balloons, and I had a sense it was going to be like that. You had a sense it was going to be like that. How could you have a sense it was going to be like that? Well, look at this. They sent this bottle of wine home, said to crack it open over dinner and celebrate the beginning of a great journey together. That's how we welcome new people. Now, alternatively, you could throw parties for people leaving. If enough people are leaving, maybe you have one big gala event. They're all leaving. Let's have a big party. I think you should survey how things are at your house, in your company. How are things going? Survey your employees at least once a year. And most importantly, tell them what you heard and what you're going to do about it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The reason we as employees don't like filling out surveys is because we don't know what you do with it after you've done it. Lunch with the president. Anybody, the first 12 people each month that sign up have lunch with me in the conference room for 3 hours. Any question is fair game. Business or personal. Hey, Jack, are you married and do you have children? Actually, I've been married like my whole life. Married my high school sweetheart. We celebrated 40 years together in marriage last year. And we have 2 kids. Melissa's 39 and Adam is 32. And I became a grandpop just 2 years ago with little Malcolm. How about you? By the way, that was my move right there. The key was not the stuff that you learned about me. The key was me saying, what about you? And what I've done is I've opened myself up way more with my answer than you anticipated me giving. And the reason I did it is because there are 12 other people in that room that you're going to open yourself up and let them know a lot about you. Because if I can mix the group each month, what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition the employees into being family. I want you to think about any professional sporting event and look at the locker room after they've won the Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, the World Series, or whatever it is. What happens is they interview the players from the winning team, the world champions, and the word family comes up over and over again. There's our opportunity, gang. Create a family atmosphere in your company from a cultural standpoint. I believe in sharing the metrics on how the company is going, and I really believe that we need to get out of our office and be in the field more frequently. I did bring you one page on page 8, which is a tool on empowerment. It's the best that I've ever seen. It came out of a book that's very difficult to find because it's out of print these days, but it's really worth your journey to find it. I can find it on the internet. That means you can. It's called How to Make a Buck and Still Be a Decent Human Being. And How to Make a Buck and Still Be a Decent Human Being is written by a guy by the name of Rick Rose, who is the CEO of this company. And he has this on wall boards the size of this flip chart in the company. He has it on the back of their business cards. Is it right for the customer? Is it right for our company? Is it ethical and something for which you're willing to be accountable? And is it consistent with our company's basic beliefs? If the answer is yes to all 5 questions, don't ask, just do it. That beats somebody saying, I can't punch your parking ticket without a transaction. All right? So what I wanted to do in this before the first break hour was go big picture on you. The next 2 sections are sales and sales management. We're going to move at a very fast pace when you come back from the break. We're not going to cover every line item. I'm going to have you turning pages. I'm going to be at that board, and I'm going to be drawing all kinds of things that you could draw in your workbooks. I will tell you without any reservation, in the hour that I have with you when we come back from the break, all right, there will be so many revenue and profit-making ideas, I will guarantee you your head will be swimming. Mickey's going to come up and tell us how long we have for break. If you are interested in the newsletter, again, just throw a business card at me in some way. I'll see you after the break. How's that for you? Okay, thanks. All right, so watch this one. So I spent 12 hours with 8 CEOs from Massachusetts in a conference room. And they hired me to do that page 3 of yours, but with a 90-some page workbook. And there were 8 CEOs from 8 different industries, and we got together, and I spent the first 2 hours and change on culture, what I just did. Then we did sales, and we did sales management. At the end of the 12 hours, one of the people was a spokesperson and for the whole group, and they said, we're well educated, bright guys. Got to tell you something, Jack, best educational day we ever spent in our whole life. But I got to tell you something else. If you had stopped at the first 2 hours, we would have said the exact same thing. Not that the rest of it wasn't that good, but here's the conclusion they came to. If we could get that part right, the culture, everything else you talked about will be easy. If you don't get the culture right, everything else I might talk to you about is harder. So that's why we spent the time that we spent on the culture side of the house, okay? I wanted to answer a question that was asked by me by 3 different people, which means that there's several people in the room. A bunch of people came up here and was asking me about different, page 33 that's in your book, and they were asking about this package of videos and audios and books that I've written and all of that. Page 32 is a listing of all that stuff. It's on my website, okay? So I don't like to bother with it. But page 33, I just want to let you know, those value packages, just for your own edification, the top left-hand corner is called Jack in a Box. It's all sales and sales management. And on my website, that has $660 worth of stuff. It sells for $450. See that in the top left-hand corner on page 33? Scratch the $450 and put $350 down. The right-hand top corner is Jack Outside the Box. It's a big box full of no books in that one. It's all audios and DVDs. It's on culture, advanced sales, and advanced sales management. Scratch the 900 and put 800. And then in the middle is the Daily Double. And that's everything in both boxes. It's called Everything I've Ever Done. And scratch 1350 and put 1,000. And if you're interested in any of those for those price points, just fill that form out and give it to me sometime here today, and we'll ship that to you at those price points, okay? Otherwise, you can go to the net and get taken care of. And hopefully that was helpful. All right. We want to spend the next hour and a little bit on sales and sales management. And as I mentioned, we're going to go through this stuff rapid fire. Page number 9. Under Be Memorable, I'm only going to cover item number 2, immediate follow-up. And what I'd like you to write in there is buy and use a money bag. Okay? Buy and use a money bag. Now this is my money bag. And I carry it everywhere I go as a salesperson. And I'm going to tell you what goes in my money bag. And if I were in your chair, I would make notes of what goes in a money bag. First thing that's in my money bag are my company-issued thank you cards and envelopes. So company-issued thank you cards and envelopes. I also have my photo personalized cards and envelopes, which are way more powerful than the company-issued. I'll tell you about them in just a minute. I have my business cards in here. I also have a blue felt tip pen. Now, I'm not suggesting you write blue felt tip pen, but I am suggesting as a salesperson, you should have a color and a style and stay with it. And over time, your customers will see it as your look and your brand. So a lot of people have remarked to me in my life about my brilliant blue eyes, so I went with the blue felt tip. All right. I have a ballpoint pen in here because I found my blue felt tip pen on an envelope on a rainy day, leaks down it and doesn't get where I'm sending it. Last thing I have in here are my stamps. Now, my stamps are a bit different than most. A little difficult to see out there, but these are my coat and tie portraiture stamps. All right, so that's my formal look. I also, as you learn, do some Ironmans. So I have Iron Man Jack stamps done in that kind of Obama poster motif. And I'm riding a bike and crossing a finish line there. And if you're not comfortable putting your own photo on your stamp, some of my clients have gone to the point of taking their company name and logo and putting it on their stamp. I get those done at stamps.com, Zazzle.com, and I'm sure there are other services, but that'll get you done. Now, that's all that's in the bag. The only thing I haven't talked to you about were the photo cards. Let me tell you about these photo cards. I call him Mickey, and I find that he is a passionate golfer. And so after I call on him, I send him a thank you card. And the card that I send him is me in full kilt attire over in Scotland. And over in the blank card, I say, hey, Mickey, I really enjoyed us meeting together and talking about doing business together. I think it's the proverbial win-win. I left really excited, but I got to tell you, I think I left even more excited about the fact that we're both passionate about golfing. And my vision is, let's get out on the golf course and chase the white pill around, bud. Now, if Mickey wasn't in the golf, but he was in the fishing, well, then I have him covered on my fishing card. And if fishing wasn't his bag, but triathlons were, well, that's me crossing the finish line on my first Ironman. But if he was into drinking wine, well, I've been known to have a sip or two myself. In fact, this wine glass can hold a whole bottle, so we'd have a good time. If he's a dancer, I got him covered on the dancing. If he's a runner, I got him covered on the running. If he's into his kids, I found out last night he's got a 4.5-year-old. Well, mine are old, as you found out. But I got little Malcolm now. So there's little Malcolm, and he'd get my Malcolm card. If he was into swimming, he'd get my swimming card. If he was into gambling, he'd get my gambling card. And every once in a while, I run into a guy that I call on and thinks of himself as a real ladies' man. I love sending him this card. This is me at the Playboy Mansion with 6 playmates. I say, hey, Mickey, if we're going to go out together, make sure you can bring some game. I work really, really hard to figure out what I might have in common with the person I call on, because I learned this as a sales guy when I was in my teenage years. People do business with people they like, and they tend to like people that like the things that they like. So I work really hard to figure that out. But if Mickey was into gardening, well, then he would get my generic company thank you card, because I just can't go there. Now, let me explain to you the process, because I started this morning by talking about systems and processes. Here's how it works. We call on each other, I do a business card exchange, and the very first thing that I do while I'm on premises, the furthest I'll get is the parking lot. Usually in the lobby of the building, but in the parking lot. Here I am. I enter you into my database. I thank you for the time that we spent together, and I reconfirm what we're going to do next. Never, ever have a sales call end without creating a next action step. Okay? Next thing I do, while sitting in the parking lot, I take out my money bag and I write you a handwritten note, and I write personal right next to your name, because one of the things we learned from top producers, they're calling up higher in the organization. The higher you call in the organization, the bigger the deal and the easier the deal. Less approvals, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of salespeople misline that, and they call lower in the organization because it's easier to get in lower. But it's worth the journey to go higher. The higher up you go in the organization, the more you run into personal assistants, and they sort their mail amongst a lot of other things, and they sort it this way. They throw out the junk mail, then they put magazines and newspapers at the base, then they put activity reports, then they put correspondence, and at the very top are personal. And mine's going to be there the very next day, because I will not leave the premises of this building without putting it in the mailbox right here. And it's the immediacy of doing it. And by and large, what I'm doing is this. Bang, before I ever left the premises, they got this from me, and then the next day they got a handwritten note, and guess what? We're playing with their noodle, and they're saying, if this guy's that much on top of his game, imagine how much on top of the game he'll be with servicing my account. And the more commonplace saying thank yous comes from this instrument, the higher the value of a handwritten note. But I don't have to leave it to chance, and I already have that all together. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring that up is here's a client of mine. So they hired me. They see me in a venue like this. Guy has 65 salespeople. He's the third best company to work for in the state of Pennsylvania. Doug hires me to come in and spend a day teaching the salespeople how to sell, which, by the way, December 10th, I'm going to be in Denver all day in a 7-hour training program that's open to the public. And you can see that on my website or in my newsletter. So December 10, 7 hours all day for salespeople. All right. So Doug hires me to come into his company of 65 salespeople, and he says, by the way, make sure that you cover the money bag. So I cover the money bag, and then he presents the money bag to all of his people. Locked and loaded with their photos and everything else, and his company name is Arcus. I open up and look at the bag, and inside, this was my favorite part. This is the Arcus Jack Daly money bag instructions. Systems in process, systems in process, systems in process. So, Doug wrote these 5 things as a result of listening to me speak, just like you did. So, in your notes, you can check against Doug's notes. And one of these really cracks me up. All right, at a sales call, remember to exchange business cards during and after a sales meeting with a client. Create a next action step. Who is going to do what and by what date? Number 2, sit in your car in the parking lot. What I really meant, Doug, was the immediacy is the key, all right? But nonetheless. Number 3, enter the contact information. Enter the information from the client business card into the BlackBerry. Number 4, send a follow-up email to the client. Thank them for their time and reconfirm the action step you agreed upon. 5, write a handwritten note. Use the Arcus correspondence cards and logo stamps. Thank the client for their time. Include your anticipation and excitement for the next step. Address the envelope and write personal next to the client's name and place in the building's mailbox to ensure next day delivery. Every one of the salespeople, 65 of them, were given this. It is the 3rd top company to work for in the state of Pennsylvania. All 65 were given to it, and now I want to tell you, while I was doing my presentation there, Doug stood up and said, this is our system and process. If you want to continue to work here as a salesperson, there are no exceptions. Everybody does it this way. The majority of companies, every sales guy operating as if it's the wild, wild west, some choosing to do, some choosing not to do. If it will work, work it consistently throughout your company. Implement systems and processes. I spoke in Toronto a year ago. I spoke to CEOs on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and on Thursday and Friday I had public venue events there. On Friday I woke up to this email. The subject, all caps, 2 sales since Monday. Hey, Jack, I was seriously considering crashing your course today to share this, but thought better to send you this note. Since Monday of this week, after attending your session with XYZ in fabulous North Dumfries, Ontario, I have closed 2 sales using your techniques, emailing from the parking lot and the thank you card dropped in the mailbox nearest the building. Both clients loved it and both bought my software product. here's my favorite sentence. That has simply never happened before. The sales cycle with our software is typically 2 to 4 months. 2 sales since Monday. Thank you, Jolene. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of heat on some of the people that are here because some of the people that are here have heard me speak before and, in fact, have heard me talk about buy and use a money bag. The question that I would put in front of you is how many of you actually have implemented it on a system-wide basis in your company? I got into the speaking business, and I grew up my businesses primarily in the financial services arena. So banking, financial services, mortgages, money business. I was asked to speak at industry conferences. I got 1,500 people in the conference, and I'm speaking, and they're my competitors, and I speak for an hour and a half like I'm doing here today. And my sales guys at the end come up and go, what are you doing, man? These are guys that we're all competing with, and you're telling them all this good stuff. And I'm going, yo, man, back off. Don't worry about it. Nobody's going to do anything with this shit. Because the only thing I was doing was trying to impress the very best guys in there because I was going to be recruiting them. But now, I'm not recruiting you. I'm trying to educate you, but this crap doesn't work in this room. It only works out there. What are your systems and processes in your company to make sure that something like that would work? And by the way, when we talk about systems and processes and things that will work, the very best thing that I could ever share with you about how to increase the effectiveness of a salesperson is on page 10 and 11. On page 10 and 11, I call it backward thinking. Define success, top of the page, and chart back to the present. I get in front of sales audiences and I say, how many people would like to be more successful than you are already? Show me your hands, and all the hands are up. But how many people are willing to pay the price to be more successful? I'm going to give you 4 component parts of backward thinking. And all of these need to be there in order for a salesperson to take their production up a significant level from where they're producing it today. I don't care what the economy is like. The very first thing they need to have is they need to have their goals in writing. If your goals are not in writing as a salesperson, it is dreams. They are dreams. Dreams don't often come true, but goals in writing do. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to make sure our salespeople have their goals writing. Now, if you were to do that and only do that and not get the next 3 pieces, likelihood is you're not going to get it done. I watched this happen. New Year resolutions, beginning of the year. Be healthy in 2010, join Health Club. And in January, the health clubs are packed. But by April, it's all back to normal. And the reason that they don't work is because 2, 3, and 4 are missing. Next thing we need is a written plan on how they're going to achieve the goals. You see, if you're going to go from Denver to New York, and that's a goal of yours in 2011, you could write it down in step number 1. But you'd have a better shot at getting to New York if right now you were to write down and say what month you're going to go, what week you're going to go, how long you're going to go. Are you going to go by car? Are you going to go by plane? How much is it going to cost? Where are you going to stay? Book the reservation, book the airplane, do all of the things that are necessary to go to New York, and by God, you're going to go to New York. But if we just say, I'd like to go to New York next year, it ain't going to happen. And that's too often what we see with salespeople. I need a written plan to ensure that we're going to get there. Next, here's that word again, a system of measurement. A system of measurement, and next is a system of accountability. A system of accountability. At the bottom of that page, maybe draw a little bit like this. Mickey's my sales guy. It's the beginning of 2011. I sit down and I say, what's your sales goal? He tells me, my sales goal is to do $1 million in sales this year. The first thing that we need to do as business leaders with our salespeople is we need to vet that number. And you need to reality test that number. And my observation is we don't do a good enough job. I need to know before the year starts that Mickey is absolutely resolute in his belief that he's going to do that. There is no question about it. It is a done deal. The only thing we have to worry about is getting the pages of the calendar to move fast enough so that we can get it done. He has to be feeling that way and convey that to me. Spend more time vetting the number. And, by the way, don't commit the sin that I see so many people do, and that is tell the sales guy what his number is. That's way ineffective. You will not get their buy-in. People will fight for the goals they set. They have to be involved in the process. Now, let's say that I vet the number with Mickey and I find that I'm comfortable with the million. Next, I want to know, of the million, how much is going to get done in January, February, March, April, May, such that 12 of them add up to $1 million. In January, he tells me $100,000. In February, he gives me a number in March and April and May. And if I can get my sales guy, Mickey, to give me his annual broken into months, I got a sales guy that's getting closer to getting this done, but not close enough. Next, I'm going to have him break the month into weeks. And now I start leaving most of my competitors. And most of my competitors will never go this far. Great. Week number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, such that 52 of them add up to $1 million. In week 1, he tells me $30,000. In week 2 is 20. Week 3 is 30. Week 4 is 20. If I can get my sales guy to break his annual into months and months into weeks, man, oh man, I'm getting really close to pulling this off. I don't care what the economy is like, but not close enough. And where I'm going to take you right now is a very promised land, and that is on page 11. And what I want now is to take every one of these weeks, because this becomes the big, big key page. See, Mickey said week 1 he's going to do $30,000. What I want to know is, what are the key activities that he needs to do that week to make that $30,000 happen? Now, I will tell you that every industry and company in here will probably have a different page 11. But I can give you some generic things to get your mind started. I might want to know from Mickey, of the $30,000, how much is going to come from existing customers. I might want to know how much is going to come from new customers, and I might want to know how much is going to come from referrals. Let me pause there. Of those 3 categories, existing, new, and referral, the one that holds the highest margin opportunity is referral. And I will make you all money right now. If I went into your company and asked for the following documents, I want to see your financial plan for this year, I want to see your business plan for this year, and I want the last 3 months' income statements. I bet you on all 3 of those documents, your income statement, your financial plan, your business plan, there's not a line item called referral revenue. However, if my sales guy has referral targets every week, and we have a weekly sales meeting with the sales manager and him, and I sit down with Mickey, and his meeting with me is 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning, like clockwork, 8 a.m. on Tuesday, and he knows I'm going to ask about referrals. On Friday, before Tuesday, he still has Friday and Monday to work. He has no referral business. Do you think he's looking for it before he's going to meet me with me on Tuesday? You're damn right, because the top of that page is what it's key. Things that get measured get done. If you would like your company to generate more referral revenue, then put it in your business plan, put it in your financial plan, and put a line item on your monthly financial statements that says referral revenue, and watch it jump. And that jump is going to create bigger margins of profitability. Well, we could do that. I might want to know from my sales guy, Mickey, the number of outbound calls that he's going to need to make that week to make that $30,000 happen. I might want to know the number of face-to-face appointments that he's going to be doing that week to make that $30,000 happen. And I might want to know the number of networking events that he's going to be involved in that week. And I might want to know the number of trade shows that he's going to be doing that week. And I might want to know the number of presentations that he's going to be putting on that week to make that number happen. And I might want to know the number of marketing initiatives that he's going to undertake that week. And I could go on with some additional activities. And then at the end of every week, I would sit down with Mickey on Tuesday and say, what did you actually do on each one of those line items? And you show me a salesperson that does this. I will show you a salesperson that knocks that ball clear out of the park. I don't care what the economy is. This page, hopes, dreams, and aspirations. This is where the rubber meets the road. I have never brought this into a company where the salespeople all went, woohoo! Until they see how much more generating in sales and how much more money they're making. And then they get buy-in. This thing absolutely works. Some of you guys that are in Vistage may have seen this from me. I'm going to hold up, just as an example, my personal goals. If you went to my website, jackdaly.net, everyone on the website has access to my goals personally. I'm going to show you how the process works. Here we go. These are my personal goals. This is 2010, everything that I want to do outside of business in my life. This is called Jack Daly Sucking the Marrow Out of Life in 2010. I think about it all during the year. My first draft is done on Thanksgiving, and it goes to my life partner, Bonnie. I say, you know the drill. You have until Christmas to give me your feedback, then we go live. Now, this is an important part of the process, systems and processes. If I do this in secrecy and then say, here's my goals for this year on January 1st, and she reviews them and goes, I don't want to do that shit, then she's going to get in the way, right? What I need her to do is sit right beside me on the bus facing the same direction and help me achieve my goals. And so the vetting process between Thanksgiving and Christmas is going on here. That's what we're talking about in the vetting process. Now, when Bonnie buys off on this, and by the way, I think that she thinks that God put her on the planet to take crap off my list, and I think God put me on the planet to hold the fort. So we have an interesting Thanksgiving to Christmas in our home. Anyhow, on January 1st, this goes live. It goes to 5 people. They're called the board of directors of my life. I send this to them, and I say, you know the drill, guys. 4 to 5 times a year, grab a hold of this. We'll go to lunch, and line by line, make sure I'm doing this stuff. There's not a month that goes by where someone isn't holding me accountable, line by line. I carry it around in here because every day I write down single thing I did that day that relates to anything that are in those goals. At the end of the month, I have my key indicators. No different than over here. I have my key indicators month by month tracking as to how I'm doing, and if I want, I can see where I was at the same time last year. Now, if I'm doing this on the personal side of my life, can you imagine how I have built and run my business? Things that get measured get done. Now, here is the caveat. I would never expect you or any of your salespeople to ever get to this level. This is evidence of a very sick human being. But if I could somehow get you to get your folks to go from where I normally find them, which is here, over to here, we would have achieved significant success. Goals in writing, a written plan on how you're going to achieve the goals, a system of measurement, and a system of accountability. And I am telling you, nothing else that I will share with you will increase sales like that. All right, we need to move on. We're going to page 12, pipeline management. Every salesperson, regardless of the business that they're in, needs to maintain 2 baskets. Now, the baskets that a salesperson needs to maintain are prospects. Those are people that have never done business with you before, but you wish they were. Someone buys from you once or every once in a while, we call them a customer. They're good things, but they're not great. They just come and go and only buy a few things from us. Clients. Man, oh man, when you build a business as a salesperson or a sales organization and you have a clientele, that is a healthy business. One of the very best salespeople I ever had happened to be working in that mortgage company of mine, and her name was Cindy, and we can learn a lot from Cindy. I work with about 80 industries a year, and I find this to be true amongst all of the top producers. Cindy was the top number 40th loan originator in the United States. She, in 1 year, did $186 million worth of residential loans by herself. That's like huge. Whole companies weren't doing it. Here's the thing behind the curtain on Cindy. 90% of Cindy's business came from 12 clients. Somewhere on that page, make sure you write this down. The better performing salespeople are calling on less people and writing more business. The key is they're calling on the right people. Too many people calling on too many people that they shouldn't be calling on. Here's what we find. Here's a sales territory, and Mickey is calling on these accounts. And I call them into my office as the sales manager, and I say, Mickey, you're not getting enough business out of that sales territory. He leaves my office and says, man, I think Jack's really serious this time. It's the absolute wrong thing to do. What he should do is identify the high opportunity accounts and call on them more frequently. Here is a huge statement, filling in the blanks right in the middle of that page. Selling is the transfer of trust. And then I go on to say, people do business with people they trust. They get to trust the people they get to know, and they get to know the people they see more frequently. If you call on too many people in the marketplace, no one gets to know you, therefore no one can trust you. And so one of the things that the top 10%ers in sales have learned is a word called focus. Because focus precedes success. And one of the things that we as sales leaders must do is get our people focused. And we say that you can best do that with a process. Systems and processes, systems and processes. This process I call inspect the baskets. Inspect the baskets needs to be done at least every month. My better clients do it every week. Imagine the sales managers getting with Mickey and saying, who's your number one prospect that you're working on right now, that if you landed that account, life gets really good? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? And we work on down the list. When did you last touch them? How often have you touched them in the last 90 days? In what ways are you touching them? And what's standing in the way of them becoming a customer? Who's your number 1 customer, number 2 customer, number 3 customer on down the list? How often are you touching? What ways are you touching? What's standing in the way of them becoming a client? Who's your number 1 client, number 2 client, number 3 client on down the list? How often are you touching? What ways are you touching? What's standing in the way of them doing even more business with us? Any organization that isn't doing this at least once a month, I guarantee. Okay, thank you, is leaving business all over the street. And don't give me any crap about a tightened economy. Because the sales leadership in most companies is AWOL. And if you're committing any one of the 3 sins, you ain't got time for this. And then you're moaning around about how do you figure out how to grow sales and grow profits. This is part of the process. Systems and processes, systems and processes. We had a discussion in the introductions, and I was sitting over at that table this morning, and somebody talked about compressed margins. Compressed margins, another way of saying that is that there's pressure on your price. You're hearing price a lot. If you are hearing price objections in your business, usually I can cipher through it, and it's coming about because of one of 2 things, or maybe both of these things. So let me tell you why price becomes an issue in business. 1, you haven't created enough trust. And the way you'll create enough trust is by caring more about your customer than caring about your sale. The sale will take place because you cared about your customer. There's an individual that introduced himself to me here today. We had never physically met, but I was told that he does what he does exceptionally well, and I have sent him business over and over again, so he came to thank me today. Now, the reason I sent people to them is because my specialty is sales and sales management. And what my client was asking was something else of me. And I said, go talk to this guy. He gets great reviews in that arena. None of them have ever come back and told me they want me to do it. But those same people that I sent to this other individual call me up 6 months later, 8 months later, and 15 months later and hire me to do sales training. How many other companies, when they called and hired me to do sales training, how many other companies did they talk to besides mine about sales training? 0. Then what did I not have to deal with? Price. Trust trumps price all day long. Trust trumps price all day long. I could have booked a sale and I could have done the thing that the client was asking me to do, but they could have gotten it quicker, cheaper, and better with someone else, and that's what I am there to do. Help my clients with their needs, opportunities, and problems in the best way that I can, even if it means not me. Because when it's my turn, they'll come to me. So I stand here at the end of September of 2010, and I tell you right now that close to 80% of my 2011 year is sold out. Wouldn't that be a nice position for your salespeople to be in? And the reason is because I think about my customers before I think about me. Someone came to me at the break and asked me if I do off-site strategic planning and so forth, and I said, well, it depends. We can talk about it, but I know some people that are exceptional with that, and they might be a lot better at it than me. Because I got a narrow piece where I'm really good, and I know a lot of resources. Wouldn't it be better to give them that? Help your clients with their needs, opportunities, and problems. And the price tends to not matter as much. Well, there are two reasons that price objection comes up. One is you haven't created enough trust. The second reason is you haven't created enough perceived value. So on page 13, I want to talk to you about that piece. The question that I ask is this, and you can do as best you can at the top of the page on those lines. What perception of value are you creating in your marketplace such that people will go out of their way and or pay a premium to do business with you? What perception of value are you creating in your marketplace such that people will go out of their way and or pay a premium to do business with you? The key word in that sentence is perception. The overwhelming majority of the resources that you have in your companies are dedicated and enlisted to produce real value. And I don't object to that because the minimum price of admission to do business is bring real value. However, understand that the very first time a customer does business with you, they don't buy real value, they buy perceived value. They can buy real value second, third, and fourth time because they've had experience, but they perceive that doing business with you. You see, as I'm sitting and listening to our sponsors today give their 2 minutes on each of their companies here, if you were to elect to give them a call and say, hey, I want to talk to you guys about accounting, I'm going to talk to you about whatever the services were, and you started to do business with them, it would be on perceived value. You wouldn't know until you actually jumped in and got wet. So here's my suggestion on this page. Get involved in your company and have meetings on how do we create perceived value. And down below, I'll just throw a couple examples, but we got to move on. But Tiffany's is a great example. Once that little blue box is under the Christmas tree, I guarantee you the recipient doesn't give a damn what's in it. And I watch, during a tight economy, people standing in line in that damn store and past other jewelry stores to get there because there aren't that many Tiffany's around, so they had to pass. Oh, there's one more convenient, there's one more convenient, there's one more convenient, but I'm going to Tiffany's today. Now, if I had a company, I'd say, shit, I want to be Tiffany's in my market. So I ask you to write this down. What is your Tiffany's box? What is it that would cause people to go out of their way or pay a premium? Because look at this. Tiffany's is a destination store. What that means is there's very few people that happen to walk into Tiffany's. They actually leave their home and say, I'm going to go to Tiffany's today. And I've never met a person that said this. I'm going to go to Tiffany's today, and when I get there, maybe I can cut a good deal. They say, I'm going to go to Tiffany's today, it's going to be expensive. Cheaper here and more convenient, cheaper here and more convenient, cheaper here and more convenient, but the hell with it, I'm going to Tiffany's. It didn't happen by accident. What that is perception of value by design. We could learn a lot from being able to do that. Page number 14. Page 14 says, salespeople are not leveraging the internet. So I'm going to talk to you about company side, and I'm going to talk to you about the personal side. on the company side from a selling standpoint. A salesperson should take their prospect out of the basket and go to the person's website, not just their homepage. Go deep. Here is why you want them to go there. You want them to come up with 5 or 6 questions or observations that they learned about the prospect by going to their website. 5 or 6 questions. Why are they not carrying a certain product? Why are they carrying a certain product? Why are they pitching the product this way? Why is it that some of their competitors have something going on and they don't? 5 or 6 meaty discussion issues. The next thing, while they're there on the website of their prospect, is I want you to go in as a salesperson and look for keywords and phrases that are wedded into the pages. Keywords and phrases throughout the website. Now, those keywords and phrases were embedded in there by design. And what they are is there to kick the company up on the search engines. It's called SEO, search engine optimization. Take those keywords and phrases that are repeated and plug them into your search engine, and then find other companies that come up. There are companies that are playing in the same sandbox. They should be in your prospect basket. If they're not, you just found new prospects. Next, go to those companies that came up and go to their website. And your mission in visiting their websites is to come up with 5 or 6 key questions or observations about what you discovered. Now you have 10 to 12 questions or observations about the company and its business to go in and make a sales call and not walk in and have your brochures in hand trying to sell them crap. People do not want to be sold. So I tell salespeople all the time, quit selling, help people with their needs, opportunities, and problems. And if you spend enough homework and time finding out what that was, you've added credibility, you've added trust, and you can actually have the customer saying, and what do you guys bring to the party? As opposed to you rushing in and beating them up over the head with it. Different. And different than other competitors. Now, if I have a sales force, I don't want some people doing this and some people not. Systems and process. And then homework on the person. Egos of the room, I know, are high. Sorry about this, guys, but people don't do business with companies. People do business with people. And there's a great thing that we can do with social media. Where are the salespeople with social media today? I don't get it. Bill Gates, arguably one of the brighter, richer people on the planet, wanted to buy as much of Facebook as he possibly could, and they sold him less than 10%. Now, this bright, rich guy, you think he bought Facebook because it's a social interactive site on high school and college campuses? Or do you think he bought it because he thinks there's a return on investment? I'm thinking return on investment. So if he's bright enough to do that, why are your salespeople not on Facebook? Why would they not be on Facebook? I don't understand. Building trust and relationships and friendliness. I don't get that. I'm going to give you some things to write down under item number 2. One of them is going to be Facebook. But I'm going to tell you right now that in a 45-day period, I booked 5 gigs from social media, and it cost me nothing. And people are talking about a tightened economy. Here was one. I was at LAX, and I was getting ready to board the plane, and I updated my Facebook message. It was a Sunday, and I said, hey, I'm headed to Toronto. Monday through Thursday, I'm speaking to CEOs in different places in Toronto. Monday through Thursday. Then Thursday night, I'm headed to New York, and I'm speaking with 280 salespeople for one of my clients, and then I'll be headed back home to California on Friday night. And I put my little toy away, and I got on the plane. And when I got off the plane, I took it out, and I turned it on. Facebook, 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 Facebook. Messages all over the place. Jack, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. breakfast, lunch, dinner, cocktails, 30 minutes of your time. Can I get 30 minutes of your time? I'd love to get together, love to get together, love to get together. By the time I boarded my plane to New York on Thursday, I booked 3 gigs from the Facebook update I did on Sunday. I got to New York and I booked 1 more. And yet I run into people and I say, why aren't you on Facebook? Oh, I went on Facebook a couple times. You know, it says things like, oh, I'm taking my daughter to Disneyland. I'm going out and taking my son out for a cheeseburger. I ain't got time for that shit. Well, nor do I. So you skip that shit and focus on how can you make social media work for you. But don't look for a darn reason why you can't do something. Look for the reasons and figure out how you can do it. So one of the things would be Facebook. Second one, LinkedIn. How can a salesperson be viable in that marketplace today and not be on LinkedIn? And these are free. If you were LinkedIn with me, you'd have access to the 1,500 plus people I'm LinkedIn with. You could then take your prospect basket and see if any of your prospects are in the people that I'm LinkedIn with. Then you could send me an email and say, yo, Jack, could you open up the door? You're LinkedIn with this guy and the guy won't meet with me. You could do that if you were LinkedIn with me, but if you ain't LinkedIn with me, you can't do shit. Now, I ain't saying LinkedIn with me, but you need, as a sales system and process in your organization, to figure out the people they need to be LinkedIn with and get them active. And by the way, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, be active in 2 or 3 groups and answer the queries, because what's going to happen is you're going to identify yourself as the fountain of knowledge. And you're going to differentiate yourself from the pack. You're going to raise your profile, which is called perceived value. 5 to 10 messages a day are coming into this thing. To me, Plaxo. So-and-so's birthday is in 5 days. So-and-so's birthday is in 3 days. So-and-so's birthday's tomorrow. I'm in Sydney, Australia. I get a Plaxo. Gary Kitchen's birthday is tomorrow. Gary Kitchen's a client of mine. He's the chairman of the board of a company based in Birmingham, Alabama called OF USA, Office Furniture USA. 350 dealerships selling office furniture. I've spoken to them on 8 occasions in the last 5 years, but the last 2 years he hasn't hired me. I say to Gary, hey, Gary, so you think you're going to be older tomorrow? I got news for you, my friend. You're already that old where I am. I'm down under. Couldn't wait till tomorrow to send my good tidings. Have a happy birthday. And remember this, Jack Daly loves you. I hit send. Within 2 hours, I get an email back from Gary Kitchen. Jack, you're a remarkable guy. Amazing you could remember my birthday, and even more impressive, you would take time off your busy schedule in Australia to send me this note, my favorite part. When you get back to the U.S., call me. It's been too long since we had Jack Daly into our company. I come back into the U.S., he books me to speak there in November of last year. I speak to 350 dealerships in November of last year, and 5 of them come up afterwards and hire me to speak to their company. The damn thing got me 6 gigs. And look, I ain't even trying to build a business, and I'm 61 freaking years old. I'm talking to people that are 30 years old going, how do you spell names? The hell am I doing this? Naymz. Plaxo. Plaxo. So, did you get those? Plaxo? Put names down there, Naymz. Don't ask me what it is. Just do it. Because the people that I am getting consulting from that say, hey, this is a medium that will generate you business, I trust. And I do what I'm told. Do a blog. Update your blog. Update your blog 2 or 3 times a month. It doesn't matter if anyone is reading it. Do it anyway. Because it's viewed by the search engines as an active website and they kick you up on the search. And you might think about tweeting as well. Now, when I look at page 15, down on the bottom of page 15 is target marketing. And this adds to the perception of value game. Every sales organization and every salesperson should have a touch system. Notice the words I keep using. Systems and processes, systems and processes. Here is how you build, in a very nutshell way, a touch system. There are 4 databases. There's a prospect database. Those are people that have never done business with you. Customers, people that occasionally do. Clients, people that regularly do. Anyone you meet in life that didn't fit into the first three buckets is other. A touch. A touch is any way that I reach out and let somebody know that I exist. A touch is a personal visit, face to face, belly to belly. A touch is a phone call. It's an email. It's a snail mail. It's a voicemail. It's a fax. It's social media. It's any way that I reach out there and say, yo, 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 yo. I'm out here. The latest statistic that we have in this area, it takes 9 touches before they know you exist. The next statistic that I can give you in the same study said that most salespeople and sales organizations quit at 5 or less. They haven't even heard you. If your touches are all about you and your company, you are blowing it. Because you're back selling and people don't want to be sold. So what we need to do is open it up and let the sun shine. So you could touch them with industry info and ideas. Not your industry, theirs. Things that could help them in their business. So as an example, I'll put this on the Vistage members. There are a number of Vistage members in the house today. I was in Vistage for 5 years. There are speaker resources that come through. They spend morning with you. And they give you best of their field. Boom, ba boom, ba boom. And that thing is audioed. And it's done on a CD. And you get their handouts. I ask you, how many of you, don't answer, but how many, because it would be hurtful, how many of you have taken that material and then turned it around and made it into a touch piece to help your prospects, customers, and clients and provide it to your sales force? Regularly and ongoing. General business info and ideas. If I'm calling on small to medium-sized companies, I ought to be reading religiously Fast Company magazine and Inc. magazine and finding articles that I could then pass on. If I'm calling on Fortune 2000, I should be reading Fortune, Forbes, and The Economist, looking for ideas. Solve this, thought of you, hope it helps you in your business. My business card gets stapled to it. Off it goes. I don't stick another brochure in there going, look at my new product. That can wait. Build the trust. Care about your customer. You can touch people with things you know about them personally. You can touch people with things that are just plain fun. As I mentioned, I carry this camera everywhere and I turn it into cards, and it's just fun stuff. Then what we do is we take the prospects, customers, and clients, and we categorize them. And I'm just going to make it simple, A, B, C, and D. And an A, maybe they get touched every day. And a B, maybe you touch them once a week. And a C, maybe you touch them once a month. And a D, maybe you touch them once a quarter. And then in your contact management software, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you take this blue and red into the system. Now, I have one sales organization doing business this way, competing with one doing it this way. Who do you think is kicking whose ass? And would you really want to say to your salespeople, I think this would be a pretty good idea for you to consider if you would like to do it or whatever? I don't get that. And yet I see it happening. By the way, there's so many things I'm talking about right now, but if you're committing any one of these 3 sins, you ain't got time to do this stuff. So the company that does will kick your ass. And you'll talk about how tough the economy is, and I don't think the economy has much to do with it. I think it's dereliction of duty. Page 16. Page 16 is the relationship selling process. And the relationship selling process says we can break the process down into 5 boxes. The first box is an approach campaign. Next to it in your notes, you could put perception of value and touch system. But all that does is get you into the meeting, get you an appointment. But if your sales guy got an appointment, would they know how to properly interview? Would they know the right questions to ask? Would they know the order in which to ask them? Or would they just be winging it? Would they know when and how to present the solution? Would they be ready for objections? And would they know when and how to best ask for the business? Every one of those boxes can be broken down and taught and inspected and made sure that the system is working throughout if you have someone that is in the leadership position. Going in concert with that page is page 17, which is the success guide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because very few of my clients undertake it because there's a lot of work and there's time involved. But I can tell you that this, in any economy, is worth at least 20% increase in revenues, period. At least 20%. And the key is at the bottom of the page. There's hardly anything that goes on a sales call that you couldn't anticipate before you get there. As a result, there's no reason to not be prepared for most anything that goes on in a sales call. The best salespeople are canned. See if 4 bullet points down is the objection guide? I get in front of audiences. I'll do this December 10th when I'm here in Denver. My sales workshops have typically somewhere between 30 to 150 people in them, depending upon the city. I'll grab a company and they'll have 8 sales guys. They'll be sitting at that table. I'll say, what's your company name? And they'll give me their company name. And so I put their company name in there. Why do business with your company? Why do business with your company? And I'll hear things that's bullet point number 2, right? Why do business with your company? And the first guy says, experience. Okay. Why do business with your company? And the next guy, he says, lots of choice. Next guy, knowledgeable. Next guy, good customer service. Next guy, we care. Next guy, me. And the insanity continues. And I stop him and I said, no, listen, if somebody else, a competitor, what's a competitor? He'd say X. And if I had competitor X stand up and I said, why should I do business with competitor X? Would they tell me this? Yeah, this. Then congratulations, you gave me no reason to choose you. And the reason is because they didn't do their homework beforehand. They just made it up. See if it'll stick. I had a session last month. This guy, he's the 3rd guy. He goes, oh, the guy before me took my answer. I said, don't worry about it. It sucked. I was starting to get into objections. I get in front of these groups, and I got sales guys, 50 sales guys in the room from different industries. How many objections do you think are out there? Oh, millions, thousands, hundreds, infinite. Really? I got time after this session. I'll open up the bar on my credit card for 2 hours and buy the whole house drinks for 2 hours if you can put more than 15 up. And by the way, I'm just going on my way to see my grandson, Malcolm, so I'm in a good mood. Let me give you some. I'll give you a price. I'll give you happy with somebody else. Give you had a bad experience with you or somebody in your company. I'll give you the array of choice in your company is limited. And I'll give you that you're local and I'm looking for national. And so you're too small. There's 5. So now you only need more than 10. And I'll buy cocktails. Bring it. 12 years worldwide doing this. I've never bought a cocktail. Now, 50% or more of success at selling is a head case. You tell me how this is supposed to work. Guy's going to make a call on a prospect. He drives up there. He turns the engine off and says, there's a million reasons why this guy's going to turn me down. I think I'm ready to go in now. So the first thing we need to do as sales leaders is we have to dispel the urban legend that says there's a million objections. There aren't many. In most businesses, there's less than 8. Then identify what they are and come up with the best 1 or 2 responses and then nail it. And make sure that your people are saying the things that need to be said and not making up something new each time. The best salespeople are canned. What are your systems and processes to make sure that happens? Well, on page number 18, I have a sales systems and processes checklist. Here's a book that's out. It's called the Checklist Manifesto. And the Checklist Manifesto is not viewed in the business world as a business book, but it ought to be because it is absolutely sound stuff. It's written by a guy by the name of Gawande, Gawande. And it starts by talking about how when they put checklists in the operating room of hospitals, the incidence of mistakes went to near zero. Because there was a checklist for everything that needed to take place, and if the checklist was followed, things happen. The same thing happens on airplanes, and that's why that metal stays in the air so frequently. Where is your checklist in your business for sales and sales management? So I say, here's a checklist for you in that arena. All you need to do is implement it. Now I want to move over to the sales management side. We'll go for another 10, 15 minutes here, and we'll wrap. Page 19, the bare minimum, measure everything. Minimum standards of performance. This is on the top 3, 4, 5 lines there. Minimum standards of performance need to be negotiated with each individual salesperson. Minimum standards of performance need to be negotiated with each individual salesperson. I tell the story a lot. He's about a sales guy, and he worked for me years ago covering that territory, and his name was Joe. And Joe made $40,000 a year, 100% commission only. My problem with Joe is that he should have been making 80 to 100. So I told him that, showed him what to do different, and 2 months later, he's still there. So now I said, hey, Joe, it's not working for me, man. You should be making 80 to 100. In other words, I should be getting 2 to 3 times the sales in that territory. If I don't see improvement in the next 3 months, I'll cut your territory in half. 3 months later, I cut his territory in half. The day the new guy started, Joe came in and quit. I said, why are you quitting? He said, because I can't live off of $20,000 a year. Good luck and goodbye. The next day I come into work, he's there. I said, what are you doing here? He said, I talked it over with my wife and we agreed I ought to work the half territory. Me, in my accountant brain, is going, hey, 100% commission only. It cost me nothing to be here. I get 2 guys in the territory. We only had 1. I'm ahead. Fox is leaving business. Faulty logic. Get this down somewhere. A non-performing salesperson, regardless of how they're paid, is non-performing. You put Joe in this territory, he's just going to poop in a smaller space. Someday somebody's going to have him come in and clean up the poop. I'd be better off if he wasn't there. But you know what? I was an accountant back then. So I let him stay. A year later, we looked at all the sales guy's numbers. Tell me what he made in that territory. 40. This guy made 50. Then the light went on. I said, oh, I could have done this to Joe. He'd have made 40. This. Joe woke up one day in life and said, 40 pays for my habits. He governs his behavior to hit that number. Now I want to show you the opportunity in the house. I've never gone into a company and not found Joe in it. So somewhere in your notes, write this one down. Joe has to go. Keeping Joe is absolutely a disaster for your culture. They're energy vampires. I think they meet secretly and trade ideas on how to take the attitudes in the company down. They can't be that good on their own. Page 20. Page 20 talks about recruiting the best people. The very first line is the key line. Recruiting is a process. See the word? Not an event. It needs to be ongoing and continuous. I ask sales managers and owners of the business, how many people are actively looking for a salesperson to come into your company right now and be the number one producer, top of the guy, just absolute landslide of business? Anybody looking for a guy like that? Everybody's hand goes up. All right, I'm in your office. I ask that question. I high-five you and then say, show me the list. What list? The list of the top guys that you're actively recruiting. Well, I don't have a list. Well, if you don't have a list, then you're not actively recruiting. What you're really raising your hand to is, wouldn't it be neat if I drove into the office one day and 2 were out front saying, are you hiring? Which I haven't found that process to work very well. So, what we need is a list. My recommendation, whoever runs the sales force needs a list of at least 20 people. Those people are happy where they're at, and they have no intention on leaving where they're at. But they will be leaving. They just don't know why and when, nor do you, but they will leave. And they tend to leave to the people that have been courting them. They're going to leave because their industry ran into a difficulty. They're going to leave because their company ran into a difficulty. They're going to leave because the leadership team changed on it. They're going to leave because they got a new boss and they don't get along with them. They're going to leave because the culture changed. They're going to leave because the comp plan changed. I don't know why they leave, but they come into the marketplace and they tend to go to the people that have been courting them. The other thing I would circle on page 20 is item number 5, and that is recruit for skills but hire for attitude. 50% or more of success at selling is a head case. And so we need to get people that are attitudinally correct. What I tell people all the time is real simple. When I'm building my companies, I say this to my sales managers. Hire Rudy. 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 Now, if you haven't seen that movie, that sort of sucks. If you haven't seen that movie, you need to see that movie because that movie is just precious. I've never made it through Rudy without crying. Rudy is a true story about a football guy that wants to go to Notre Dame and play football with him. Here are the problems. He ain't bright enough and he ain't big enough, but he does. And if you hire Rudy, you can teach him product, price, service, strategies, and tactics. But if you got the anti-Rudy, you're screwed. So you need a list of quality people, and then you need to hire Rudy. I'm skipping several pages here because they're embodied on the sales leadership checklist on page 30. So I gave a sales checklist earlier, sales management. Rank your sales staff performance and deal with the poor performers. Here is the statistic that I will give you in this area. The bottom quartile, the bottom 25% of salespeople nationwide, all businesses combined, produce less than 6% of the sales. The top 25% are producing 60+%. If you were to take the bottom quartile out, the remaining team will outperform the original team, and your culture will be enhanced. I believe that you should be, as a sales manager, spending at least once a month one-on-one with every sales guy. Those one-on-one meetings need to be at least 2 hours and be substantive in meat. I believe that we ought to have at least 2 sales meetings a month and understand what that is. A sales meeting. Not information, not communication. Teaching guys how to sell. Doing the success guide. Doing the perception of value. Doing the touch system. Taking a look at their goals. Measuring and tracking their activities. Sales meetings twice a month. A minimum. We need a recruiting basket of 20 that we're courting. And use the touch system with the courting process. You should be interviewing people all the time. And there is no such thing as fully staffed. You always have openings in your company for top producers. That means you always need to be looking for them. Monthly, at a minimum, we need to inspect the baskets. My better clients do it weekly. At least once a month, we need to inspect the key activities of our salespeople. My better clients do it every week. Progress reviews need to be done at least quarterly, and progress reviews has nothing to do with performance reviews. Performance reviews look in the rearview mirror. Progress reviews look out the windshield. What I want to know is what is going to happen in the next 90 days. Training, 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 and I don't say that because I'm a trainer. Do it inside your company. You don't need to hire me. Inspect the touch system at least once a month. Make sure you're feeding these guys with recognition and rewards. Contest, contest, contest. Take a look at the comp plans at least twice a year. They're going out of fashion regularly and ongoing. Think about throwing parties for new hires and be active out in the field. So I, as a CEO, have a checklist now. If you were to take that checklist out and at least once a month review it and say, who in our company, if not me, who the hell is doing this stuff? And if you're not doing that stuff, then you're like the pilot on the plane without the checklist and it's going to crash. And you might find some value in the hospital saying, well, There's a lot of companies crashing, Jack. It's the economy. Well, I got to tell you something. It was pretty cool to see Mickey slide up here that said 100% of his companies are making money and doing better than they were doing all last year than the prior year. 100%. I am on the wrap-up page, and that's 31, and that's Ironman lessons learned. Since Mickey teed it up, I'll finish it. How many people in the room got at least 2 walk-away ideas that could help them in their business? 2 ideas? Okay? Everybody's hands are up. That's great. Don't leave them in this room. They don't work here. All right? So, Mickey and I went to dinner last night, and he was dying to know this story, and I wouldn't tell him. So here you go, bud. 4 years ago, my wife and I were going to go on holiday over in Kona at the Big Island, and we were going to stay at the Mauna Lani. So we have reservations at the Mauna Lani, and we pull in, and there's a banner hanging up in the lobby, and there's a half Ironman there that weekend. I had no idea. Now, an Ironman, just so that we all have our terms right, an Ironman is a 2.4-mile swim, followed by a 112-mile bike, followed by a 26.2-mile run. A half Ironman is half of all that. 1.2-mile swim, 56-mile bike, 13.1-mile run. So I get there in the lobby. I said, hey, is it too late to register for the race tomorrow? And they said, I don't know. The booth that's downstairs run by the Ironman people. And so I told my wife, check in. I'm going to run down there and see if I can get in. So I said, is it too late to get in this race? And they said, no, I don't think so. And I said, all right, before I give you my money, I didn't know that it was going to be held. And so I don't have any equipment with me. And the big thing, I guess, would be, can you get me a bike? And they said, well, we got a good relationship with the bike shop down in Kona. Let us give a call. So they call, and they say, hey, I got a guy that wants to register for the race tomorrow. Do you have a bike available? And they said, sure, we can rent him a bike, put him on the line. So I got on the line, and they said, okay, so we have a bike. What size bike are you looking for? All right, now, at the time, I'm 57 years old, and I haven't been on a bike since I was a teenager. So that's an unfair question because I didn't know they came in sizes. So I said, well, the best I can tell you is I'm 185 pounds and 5'10". Does that tell you about the size? And they said, well, it sounds like you're a 54. And I said, you would know better than me. And they said, we got a 54. And I go, perfect. Can you get it down to Mauna Lani in the next couple hours? I got to stage the bike. And they said, well, sure, but what kind of pedals do you want? Here's another one of those questions. I ain't been on a bike since I was a teenager. Let me tell you the kind of pedals I want. The kind you put your feet on, and it moves the bike. I don't know they got special shoes and shit. They said, what kind of shoes are you going to use? I said, hello, I'm going to use the shoes I run in. And they said, well, the best we can do is put baskets on. I said, will that make it with the running shoes? And they said, yeah, but you're going to do a half Ironman 56-mile bike ride in the running shoes? And I'm going, that's all I got, baby. And they said, all right. So they bring the bike down to the hotel. I'm out front. Bikes have changed since I was a teenager. There was stuff on this bike that I had there were 2 rings in the front with the chain and all, and they move it up. Like, I don't know how to do that stuff. So I said to the guy, would you help me, give me a lesson on the bike? There's 3 athletes waiting for their car to be brought up from valet to go to dinner. These guys are like cut. They're over there looking at me, getting bike instructions. They start laughing, and I go, yo, you laughing at me? And they went, oh, you bet. And I go, well, guess what? This will not be my worst event. I don't know how to swim. So here's the deal. I've been a runner for a long time, and I run marathons, a lot of them. So I'm in relatively good shape, which gave me this brain-dead idea that I could actually do this race. But most of us don't really know how to swim. I mean, I can stay afloat in the backyard pool, and I can go out at the beach and frolic around in the surf, But I'm talking about in your head with water and efficiently going through. Like, no one's ever taught me. But we'll give it a go. So there's 900 of us. We stage the bikes next to the beach, and there's 900 going into the deep water. And I got to tell you, 1.2 miles, there's 5 buoys out there. It's a long way, especially if you're going to doggy paddle it. There ain't 50 people in this race older than me. Guys are cut. Gun goes off. I've heard all these horror stories about the beginning of the swim in the Ironman. Overrated. I had no issue. They all left. I had it to myself. I get to the first buoy, and the first buoy is longer than I've ever swam in my whole life. And my whole mental state said, when you get there, you can take a rest. I look over beside me. There's a guy right beside me. He's on a surfboard, gently paddling. Now, I've done enough marathons to know about the blinking truck at the end of the race, which is basically ready to take the guy out, right? And I go, I've done a lot of marathons. Are you the blinking truck? Does this mean I'm last? He said, sir, you're last by a long way. I said, well, the good news is I'm almost at this buoy, which I figure I'm going to get a rest. He said, this is a timed event, and if you don't step it up, I'll have to unfortunately pull you out of the race. No time for rest? No time for rest. He says, if you keep swimming this way, you're never going to make it. So you cannot touch me, but I'll follow the line and just swim right next to me and we'll give it a shot. So I just kept by. So we had a conversation because my head ain't in the water. I'm just... The really good news is I finished on time, in the time limit. I finished in the time limit. The bad news is I was exhausted. I was really exhausted. And the really bad news was I was dead last, and I've never been last at anything I've ever done in my whole life. And my head was out of the game, and I know that this about life, your head has to be in the game. By the way, there's a lesson right there. In a tight economy, your head's got to be in the game. Your head has to be in the game. We as sales leaders may have to make sure our people are heads in the game, and that comes from the leadership of the company. Systems and processes and checklists will help you with the head in the game. Well, my head's got to be in the game, and my head is out of the game. So I'm like standing there going, get your head in the game, get your head in the game, get your head in the game. Find something positive. Anything positive. Get in. I did. A big smile came across my face, and I thought, how tough it had to be number one out of the water. Think about the first guy coming out of the water. How hard it was for him to find his bike. $900 of them all stacked together. When I got out, it was all by itself. I come over to get on my bike, and I started putting my helmet on. I came up with another one. No one can pass me. So the rest of the race, this is what I did. I focused on the guy in front of me. And I set myself little mini targets. By the way, mini targets, lesson learned. A mini target. That would be key activities and meeting with your guys weekly. And somebody doing that, those mini targets end up getting your year's dollars done. Well, I just said, hey, John's ahead of me by about, I'm going to give him 8 minutes and I'm going to pass him. And that's all I would do is bear down on you. And then I'd go to Mark and I'd look at him and I'd say, he's about 10 minutes ahead of me. I'll give myself 10 minutes to get to you. And occasionally I'd try to see somebody and they were so far ahead, no one was there. And I'd say, well, when someone comes into view, I'm going to give them on the clock. I finished the bike I finished the bike and I made the cutoff, which meant I could go and do the run. I will tell you this, though. A lot of people think a triathlon is 3 events. I'm going to tell you it's 5. It's swim, bike, run, mental, and nutrition. I had nothing with me. I didn't know. I just showed up for vacation with my wife the day before. Man, I was spent. I get out on the run. Well, I'm in my own turf now and started picking off a few guys. And I got through the finish line and I made it. I finished. And all I wanted to do was sit down. There were no chairs, but there were grassy knolls. I don't know how to sit. Everything is ruined. I decided it wasn't too far. I could just fall back. And I fell down onto my back, and everything locked down. Everything went into a cramp. My whole body. Arms, legs, ass, cramped. All 4 appendages up. Med tent! Med tent! Run over with a stretcher. 4 people, each with a leg or an arm, onto the stretcher, take me to the med tent, pack me down in ice. So painful. I'm in the med tent. Next to that is the awards banquet in the other tent. I got a friend that was there, and I got an award. But I wasn't there to get it. But I was actually awarded a prize as the last guy out of the water and who successfully completed the Ironman in time. And so they call my name out. My friend is out there, and he goes, "Hey, here I am." And so he comes running up to get my prize. Out from behind the podium, they bring water wings and flippers and shit. And it's a gag, right? And he goes, "It's not me. It's my friend. He's in the med tent." Well, when I, 2-3 days later, thawed out and was laying in the hammock at the beach, I decided that this was something I really wanted to do, but do it right. So I came back to the mainland. I hired a coach. I hired a swim coach. I practiced. I trained over 300,000 yards in the pool that year, and I bought myself a tri-bike, and I hired a coach on the bike. I learned about nutrition, and I learned about all these things in triathlon. And I took the sport really seriously, and I went back to Kona the next year to do the half Ironman again, the same race. There were 1,200 of us out there. There weren't 50 guys older than me. Well, I got into the water, and the gun went off. And I want to tell you, the start of the swim in an Ironman is a mess. Beating on you and dunking you and swimming over you and scratching you and pull your goggles off. I mean, it is brutal. Till it sorts itself out 15 minutes later. Got to the first buoy. Remember that last year? Got to the first buoy. I almost drowned. Why? From laughing. I was so happy. There were over 200 guys making the turn the same time I was. I was all by myself last year. And so I ferret my way through that. I come out of the water and I hear the announcer say this. "Ladies and gentlemen, we now have 500 athletes that have left the water. Only 700 more to go." I was last the year before. There were 700 people still behind me now. And I felt like I did nothing. I was fully energized because I was efficient in the water and I knew what I was doing. I got on that bike and I kicked some serious ass. And then I got on my own home turf on the run, and then I started to really motor it. I crossed that finish line with many hours improvement over the prior year. That year there were 44,000 people competing for 1,400 slots in the Half Ironman World Championship in Clearwater, Florida. And that's what one of them looks like, because I got it. So why do I tell that long story at the end of this? Let me tell you why. Because I learned a ton. I should have never been in the first race. I made a mockery of that sport. I didn't know that I was doing it, and I apologize every time that I go to the sport. Every time I go to a race, I get with my athlete companions. I tell the story to them, and I apologize. They deserved better. They trained. They took their sport seriously. They practiced. They showed up ready to play the game. I should have known better. I speak to business people all over the world. You know what my message is? Take your business serious. Do you have a business or a hobby? Train, practice, systems, processes. My parents taught me this stuff. How dare I? How dare I go to that race that first year and not have done those things? How dare you? How dare us? How dare we go into our businesses and not be prepared? How dare us not have systems and processes? How dare us talk about margin compression? How dare us talk about a tough economy? How dare us when we're not doing those checklists? How dare I show up at an Ironman competition when all those people have made that investment of time and effort and systems and processes, and I show up like some clown? How dare me? How dare you? The stuff that I talked about here today is not very difficult. It's very, very basic. The stuff that I do in the Ironman competitions is not very difficult. It's just basic. You do the basics, and the results take place. The biggest complaint that I have about doing what I'm doing here today with you is less than 25% of the room does anything with it. How dare you? How dare you? Quit sinning, create a winning culture, build your sales force in quantity and quality, implement systems and processes, and make sure it's all being done with a checklist. You'll leave here a lot better than you arrived. Thanks for having me today.
And Jack, why don't I bring you back up, and we'll go with the question and answers. And we have some microphones, I believe, in the audience. Rowan is right here. So if you just raise your hand, we have two. We'll send somebody over to you.
Here we go.
Thank you, and thank you for your wisdom. And
if you would go ahead and please stand up.
Well, thank you for your wisdom, and I thought the presentation was fantastic. The question I have is around the Tiffany box example and how you create a perception of value. And if there are lessons or insights you can give all of us that may be a little more generic, but how did Tiffany's, for instance, create such value and perception in the color in the box? And how does that translate into our individual?
Okay, so the question is, how do we create that perception of value using the Tiffany's example as an example? Way more complicated than we have time. That's my problem. But let me. So I mentioned Tiffany's, but Victoria's Secret watches. You can buy a watch that works for $50, or you can pay $10,000. The $10,000 watch doesn't get you to your appointments on time, doesn't give you more than 24 hours a day. So why would somebody pay $10,000 for something that they could pay $50 for? If I said a $10,000 watch, you would tell me what company?
Rolex.
Rolex. See, and so Rolex has a compelling thing that they have created. Harley Davidson has that going for them. And so people have sat down in these companies, Starbucks has that going for them, and sat down and said, how can we create this aura, this perception? Part of it is creating it by way of the touch system. Part of it was creating it by way of the internet and the social media space. And a lot of it has to do with all of the bangles and things that you can put together that set you apart as being different from your competitors. Okay? That's as good as I can get in a quick and dirty here.
Thank you.
Other questions?
We've worn them out.
Here we go.
Here we
Jack,
go. Over. Sorry.
Right here. You want to stand up, please? Hang on just a second. We'll get your mic, but that way you can have them find you. Go ahead.
Thank you for your presentation. It was outstanding.
Thanks.
In the systems and processes that you talked about, I love that idea. I find it challenging when you have multiple locations. As CEO of a bank, I've got several locations. It's hard often to make sure that they're following the systems and processes. How would you recommend handling multiple locations?
Yeah, so multiple locations, actually multiple locations in culture becomes even more challenging than in the sales arena. So in the sales and sales management arena, the systems and processes should be able to be implemented because there's somebody there in that location that has responsibility for those folks. And so inspecting their baskets on a localized basis is easily done. And taking a company-wide system and process from a touch system and being able to see, I can look at contact management software at any location for any person. I can drill it down to an individual, to a group, to a branch, to whatever, and I can inspect it while I'm at home. So there are processes and automation aspects, and then there's local management. So it's the combination. I think the most important thing that you really have to do is figure out what it is that you're going to measure. What are the things that are the most important that will make a difference in your business? That's really the tough thing. We had one over here.
Thank you. You mentioned contact management software. Without giving a specific vendor, what would you recommend in terms of researching and implementing that? It has to be an important part of a system.
Yeah. So contact management software, I don't mean to be flippant with this answer. It is very real for me. The very best contact management software that's out there is the one that your salespeople will use. The overwhelming majority of them are going to compare one another, and they're going to compete with one another based on features. Okay? The overwhelming majority, your salespeople are going to use less than 20% of everything that's in the capability of the system. So it really doesn't matter whether it's the Cadillac or it's the jalopy. It's just a matter of whether they're going to use it and use it effectively, right? So that comes down to sales management and the leader rather than the system itself. So if you take that as something, then I would say, well, then I would go with simple. I would go with inexpensive. I would go with something that was easily distributable amongst, multiple locations, et cetera. So, there's a lot of people that will tell you the top of the line is Salesforce.com today, right? But on the other hand, I'll tell a lot of my clients, hey, you know what? You can get ACT for $79, and it's on its 8th or 9th version, and it's already been tested up the yin-yang, and it's got a whole consultant bevy out there that can help your sales guys be up and running by that day. Versus $75 a month per guy for the rest of the time with the Salesforce.com, and they're not even turning the rest of the stuff on. Now, I didn't put Salesforce.com down. It's just, hey, most of the guys don't know how to ride a race car that's that fast. Now, if you got guys that are capable of doing that, then maybe you put them in that speed car, right? But my observation of salespeople, they do